Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, what is happening? Gas masks and hand grenades here. I'm your host, Jeff. It's been a while. It has been a while. I got Mr. Peter from the Metal Vault with me here today, and Mr. Jimmy from Future Ruins here with me today.
Good evening, good morning.
Good to see you guys. Jimmy, I know you've been... Jimmy froze. There he goes. Now he's back. Right.
Okay.
You froze with your eyes closed like this. It was funny. Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't been on in close to a month, other than some concert stuff. I have kind of been. I've been very sick the last 2 weeks. Again, another lung scourge that I picked up down in Baltimore at the Two Mold Horrendous show, and I've been battling this thing. It's been even worse than back in this Decibel Fest back in April. So struggling through that, but I think I'm finally on the clear here. But it's been a while. It's been a long while since I have done a deep dive, like a super long while. I went back and started looking. I'm like, when was the last deep dive I did? And it was freaking January 10th when I did UFO with Craig Bierhorst and Michael from the Butlers band. So wow, like weird, huh? Very odd.
Yeah,
I've been away that long from the and one of the main reasons I think that is because look, summer was coming, the spring, everything's open, everybody's back to living life again, pretty much normally, and I can't rely on just dialing people up a week ahead of time and going, hey, listen to 15 albums and be ready to go on Tuesday night at 8:00, right? So it's just not a feasible deal. And I got very heavily into doing the interviews and got a lot of killer interviews, which please somebody remind me to go. Well, actually, you know what? So I don't forget, I'm going to hit that stuff before we get started here. But yeah, it's been a long time, but now we're back and we're going to do the first half of the catalog of studio catalog, that is, of the band Amorphis. And this kind of came about as a result of me doing that interview with Olli-Pekka Lane, the bass player of Amorphis, about 4 weeks ago, somewhere in that range. I went and listened to 10,000 Lakes, or 1,000 Lakes, excuse me, not 10,000 Lakes. And I was like, fuck, man, why have I not listened to this band in a long, long time? Because I remembered I just really love this band, and it's been a long time since I visited the catalog. And it gave me a really good excuse to bug Jimmy. And we decided to rope Peter into it because I knew he was a fan. And here we are. So, it's good to be back. And how you guys doing, man? How's everybody hanging in there? Peter?
Yeah, doing grand, thanks. Just been off work for the last week and a half. So that's why I'm able to stay up so late tonight.
Yeah.
Deep dive.
We should note that Peter is up at 1 a.m. in Ireland to do this. That is dedication, my friends. I really do very much appreciate that. And Peter, before we get to Jimmy real quick, Peter is styling and profiling with the awesome Gas Masks and Hand Grenades t-shirt, guys, which I really wish some people would buy some. At the risk of sounding like certain YouTube people that always hawk their shirts, and yell at people when you don't buy them. And I'm not going to name names. By the way, that's not some of the normal people that just bring it up that they've got a shirt for sale. I'm talking about some of the weirdos out there, and they probably know who they are. I always forget to mention it. So Peter has the front of the shirt, and here's the back of the shirt. I'm about to do another run of these. And Tim, by the way, Tim, Jimmy doesn't know yet, but he's going to do another edit for me one of these days soon where we add that catchphrase in because I always forget to say where the music melts your mind. So apologize for that. But Yeah, that's the back, and all the information to buy one of those is down in the body of the description for today's deep dive. Jimmy, how you doing, man? I know you've been busy, man. We've been communicating a lot, and you've got a lot going on with school starting for kids. And have they started now?
Yeah, last Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been great summer so far. It's been cool, like getting to catch up with you when we have time. But yeah, it's just been kind of crazy because I took like 3 weeks for hiking trips and then came back and had to get the school where I work ready for the new year. And so there's a lot of upgrades and things involved. So it was kind of really kind of a crunch just to really my first summer doing it. So kind of a learning experience on how much time I can actually devote to time off versus getting in and getting hiking trips in and things like that. So, but yeah, no, we started last Thursday, so now I finally feel like the rough part's over and I can start to sort of just coast as long as things are working. So that's nice.
Breathe easy a little bit. Yeah, you've been pretty stressed, I know, because when you came in for MDF and got home, you were pretty much right in the thick of it, trying to prepare for everything. How you said you did 3 hikes?
Well, I did that week. So I do just a quick channel plug. I do have a new video I put up about a week ago. That was from a South Utah trip that me and my buddy Jeremy did together earlier in June, and it was just kind of a pain in the ass because like all my situation has changed with trying to edit videos because I don't have the previous hardware that I used with my previous job. So like this new laptop is not strong enough to handle all the high def video from the GoPro, which is a new device I'm using as well. So like now I'm using Adobe Premiere, which I had to pay for, but because it's much better than the editing software I was using before. So it was a whole process, like having to try to get to learn all that stuff and get into it. So, but yeah, so I did that. And then I took like 2 weeks with my wife and we did some stuff in like Southwest Colorado. I've got a whole bunch of video from all the stuff I've done. So there's going to be another one coming up pretty soon. Like that's kind of more of like a hybrid style video of a bunch of stuff I've done like the past like month and a half or whatever. But yeah,
between you and Tyler, man, I fucking hate you guys. You guys go to some of the coolest looking places on the earth, and both of you are kind of within easy drives, or or fairly easy drives. I know some of the ones you did this time, like the Utah trip, was a bigger deal that you had to trek into. But yeah, so everybody go sub up to Jimmy Future Ruins over there. Peter, we still haven't managed to coax him into a YouTube channel yet, but he always does killer stuff on. Yeah, we're hopeful. Peter can be found at and by the way, all the stuff is in the description for these guys. You can go check out their stuff. But Peter's the Metal Vault. I guess it's the _metal_vault, right? Or it's
yeah. Just as a typed it
there.
There
it is. In your description box there, right? And so real quick, I want to touch on a couple things so I don't forget. Tomorrow night, 8:00 here, I've got the Crypt Sermon guys coming in. I've got Brooks Wilson, Steve Jansen, and Enrique Sagarnaga coming in. Super stoked and super excited about that. Love that band, and it's taken a little while to get that to happen, but I finally made it happen. Looks like Dan Swano is going to be next week. I don't have a day yet, but I got an email today saying next week. So that's going to happen. I've got awesome. Alex. Oh, man, I forget his last name, Alex. I'm sorry. Alex, I'm not going to remember, from Vile Rights coming in. I believe Monday we're going to do that. I had to reschedule that. I've got Kenny Cook coming in from Ancients on the 20th. And I'm working on a couple other super cool ones that if I get healthy enough, they're going to be pretty wild. One of them, if I make it happen, it could be just freaking massive. A pretty big name in metal. And Jimmy, I think you know who I'm talking about, but we'll see. We'll see whether I can pull that one. The other thing is I'm going to do an update, a collection update. There was still some stragglers coming in, so it's probably good I waited on that. Got a few things coming in. I think I scheduled that for this Saturday. I think you'll have to look on the YouTube channel. And is there anything else I have? Whatever. I'll remember by the end of the show. But let's get into this, man. Let's get into Amorphis here. This has been a lot of fun for me. I really, really, really enjoyed this. Really forgot how much I really love this band, both the old, the middle, the new, which we're only going to really talk about the new iteration with one album, and then we'll get into the second part of the catalog in a few weeks with tying up the discography. But let's start with you, Peter, and let's talk about, I'm going to go into, if I can remember how to do this. It's been that long, I forget how to freaking do this. How do I do this? There we go. All right. Peter, why don't we talk about where you came into Amorphis? And my guess is you probably were in before me, but maybe not. Who knows? We'll find out. Where did you come in? When did you come in? And, give us the backstory.
Okay. My introduction to Amorphis was actually back in late 1992 with Death, It's Just the Beginning, Part 2. Yeah, that's Jimmy Hazard. And they were the second last track in my copy with Exile of the Sons of Uslu, which is a song that features on the Karelian Isthmus. So that was my introduction. I didn't get the Karelian Isthmus straight away. I actually picked up Tales first in '94, and it wasn't until later then I circled back and got the debut.
So 92, and that was on a comp. That was at the comp. Yeah. Okay. So I've never seen that comp. It's weird, man.
Blast comp from back in the day.
See, I'm one of those weird dudes that missed out on the comp craze. I just missed it. I don't know exactly how or why, but I just missed out on the comp craze in the 90s. I guess because I wasn't really in the death metal scene until about 2000, 2001. I kind of came into it later. Maybe I missed all that. I mean, I know about Metal Massacre and all that stuff from the 80s, but I just didn't search those things out. I wish I had. I probably would have learned about a lot of bands a lot sooner than I did, but yeah, Jimmy, how about you then, as far as your intro story to Amorphis?
Yeah, same as Pete. I think we've got the same exact experience together with Death Is Just the Beginning compilation part 2. I would have been in 9th grade or 10th grade, something like that. I was first getting into death metal stuff, and I think I bought this probably at Tower Records or something like that. But this comp, along with like the Relapse comp, was really what exposed me to a lot of stuff. And like Pete said, the track Exile of the Sons of Uslu from the Karelian Isthmus is on this. And not long after that, in those days, we didn't have internet, so you had to kind of buy stuff to for the most part, hear it. Or if you were lucky enough to have a friend that had shit. I had a friend that got me into a lot of stuff that actually dubbed me a tape. This is it of the Karelian Isthmus, along with some Soylent Green demos from like the early days. So this was my copy of that record, because in those days I bought a lot of cassette tapes, but I don't think I ever came across the Karelian Isthmus. I think I would have bought it if I had, but so that was the very beginnings, was this band, and quite different than anything I had heard and what was hearing and getting into at the time.
So that was 92, 93-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, was that 92 that came out?
Yeah, that comp was 92. It was like late 92. I always remember it was coming up to Christmas when I found that in the shop in Belfast.
Does yours have that?
No, see, no, I don't have that. It's just must be the European edition. So,
what's it say on it, Jimmy?
Music to mangle your mind. A lot of the Nuclear Blast early CD pressings had case. All the artists had this on the case, and I think this one, and maybe I've got a Sinister album. The only ones that I have from those days.
Yeah.
Wow. Kind of at this point.
I think that was a US. The US editions of any Nuclear Blast would have had that. It wasn't on the European ones, though.
I have to be careful, man. Music to melt your mind, music to mangle your mind. Maybe I'm stepping on some legal ground there, Tim. We may have to reconnoiter here. Anyway, okay. So you guys got me beat by a good 7 or 8 years on this band, because I came into them. And remember, I've told this story many, many times, so I don't need to get too deep into it. But you know, I knew about all the Florida death metal and a lot of the European metal bands going, you know, back to the 80s into the 90s, but I just could not stomach the vocals at first. It took a long time for me to come around. It took me 10 years, to be honest with you, and it really wasn't until Opeth that I kind of was like, wait a minute, maybe I'm really missing out on something here. And that was the whole, you know, the gateway thing for me in about 01-ish with Blackwater Park. But with Amorphis, while I was discovering a lot of these bands that I had missed in the 90s, Amorphis was recommended to me on, I believe it was the Porcupine Tree Yahoo group. We had a Yahoo group called the PT Trans, and like transmission. And someone on there recommended Tuonela. And they're like, man, if you're really into Floyd and you're really into prog, you're going to love this band. And I remember going out and grabbing Tuonela, and they were right. I really dug it. So imagine my surprise when I get the second album I get from them is Tales from a Thousand Lakes. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, it did take me off. It set me off a little bit. But by that time, I'd started the end of Opeth, so I was kind of moving in that direction. So it wasn't as big of a, sledgehammer to the forehead as I'm making it sound. But it was just, that's where I came in. So I came in at Tuonela, which I believe would be 01. That's kind of where we stand with that. I'll do a little quick, very brief little Wikipedia sort of thing about Amorphis. They're a Finnish heavy metal band founded by Jan Rushberger. Tomi, I'm gonna butcher these names. Kuvasari, I believe it is. Esa Halopainen. Don't know. I'm sorry, Isa. Sorry about that. And initially the band was a death metal act, but later on albums evolved into playing many different genres, including folk metal, progressive metal. They frequently use the Kalevala, which is an epic poem of Finnish sources for their lyrics. They originally, Jan Resberg was in a thrash metal band called Violent Solution, which Tommy Kovasari had left to form the metal band Abhorrence, which we're not going to get into the Abhorrence thing because other than to name check it, that's kind of where the origins of Amorphis began. And Kovasari left this thrash band called Violent Solution and was replaced by Esa. Man, I don't want to say. I'm just going to say Esa. Esa's as the guitar player. The Violent Solution slowly dissolved with Rushberger and Esa deciding to continue working with each other and forming Amorphis. With Rushberger having ties with Kovasari in early 90, Kovasari became the vocalist and guitarist, and the band also got Opu Lane to become their bassist. During that time, Kovasari also performed rhythm guitar and leading the band to dumping all original compositions and starting all over. Kovasari's other band, Abhorrence, split up, and he found himself with more time with Amorphis. I think Abhorrence still does some stuff, though, right?
They reformed there about, was it 12 years ago, I think?
Right, but they haven't done a whole lot. There's been, what, maybe an album or two? Or
Oh, they had an old demo and EP, I think. And
okay.
I don't think they've released anything new.
Right. Okay, yeah. So we're not going to get into that stuff too deeply there, just to say that, Abhorrence, pretty heavy shit, pretty heavy death metal, good stuff. They did a demo tape called Disment of Soul, which was recorded in 91 by Timo Tolkki at TTT Studios. It was meant to be dismemberment of the soul, but they forgot the word member, which is kind of weird. So it ended up Disment of Soul. After the band recorded their first studio demo tape, Relapse Records offered Abhorrence a recording contract. Since Abhorrence was no longer active, they sent their own demo in, the Amorphis demo, and returned in the mail, and they were signed to a recording deal with Relapse. Soon after getting signed, they released their debut album, Karelian Isthmus, under the new name Amorphis, because they were still kind of Abhorrence before they morphed into the new name of Amorphis. And they also then released the EP Privilege of Evil in 93. The EP featured Abhorrence's original vocalist Jukka Kolamainen on vocals, and they did the song Vulgar Necro. What the fuck is that
Laltry.
word?
Yeah.
Necrolatry. All right.
Tree, yeah.
Yeah. These are some fucking weird ass words, man. It's like reading. It's like the early stuff is trying to read carcass fucking titles. So
It's all down to them. Their spelling mistakes. Obviously,
Yeah.
Dismant and even Amorphis, where Essa spelled it incorrectly.
right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. All right, so I guess we'll just jump into the albums here and get kind of moving in that direction. And I guess what I'll do is we'll flip flop back and forth with Jimmy and Peter going first, and I'll take up the last position here. And Jimmy, I'll let you. We did decide, or I decided, not we decided. I decided, I should say, that we should at least mention Dismant of the Soul, because that's kind of where it all started. I don't own that thing. I'm sure OG Press Dennis probably owns it. Does anybody own it? Does anybody have it? Like the real
No.
tape? Okay.
No, in fact, I even forgot to listen to it.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, two of the songs are on Privilege. Well,
Yeah, they are, but they're re-recorded versions, though.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, then, all right, we'll go with Peter and I. We'll do our little take on Dismant real quick, and I'll pull up some artwork for it. So go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, well, there's not really much to it other than it is quite, I suppose it's quite raw. It is pure death metal, I suppose, for what Amorphis have produced over the years. It's the closest to it anyway. I think the title track is grand. I can see why they didn't rework that one. Definitely think that Excursions of, I don't remember the name of it now. I think it's the second track.
Go ahead.
Excursion of, can't remember the full name of it. Let's see, I might have it here.
Oh, it's
Excursing from Existence.
From
Excursion
Existence.
yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best track on it for me. But yeah, it's just really raw and probably a bit basic. The re-recorded versions I do prefer on Privilege of Evil.
Yeah, this was actually released 1/4/91, self-produced, independent release, and it's you know, I guess let me see if I can get myself over there. Shit, I can't do it with. Oh, I gotta take that down. I can't be up on the screen. There we go. I gotta be honest with you, I'd never heard this. I knew about it because of the weird misspelling, and they actually, from what I gather, it was something to do with it had something to do with reputrefaction, I believe, right? Like they took that or was it?
Well,
let me see. Hold on here. There was a little bit of a story about it here. I thought, where'd it go here? Hold on. I was prepared with everything but this. Here we go. Where the fuck is it? Where'd it go? There's a little bit of a story behind it. Well, there it is. All right, so I'm not finding it. It had something to do with carcass, I thought. That dismemberment part from putrefaction, but now I'm not finding the damn story that I found that from. Yeah, I'm not finding it under Wikipedia, so maybe I was dreaming that. I don't know. But long story short, I'd never listened to this. And I have to say, it's better than I expected it to be. It's raw, as Peter said, it's raw. But Tommy's vocals are just absolutely sick. I mean, they're just gurgling and just fucking disgusting, man. They're just so guttural and really, really well done. There's some sinister little synth stuff going on in there. It's very just chordal textures that you can kind of hear. Very cavernous. It's very much like a lot of modern day cavernous death metal, like Tomb Mold or something like that. It's got that aura of sinisterism, you know what I mean? Not sure what tuning they're playing in, but they've got to be down in B territory, maybe G sharp, A, somewhere in that range. I didn't try to figure it out with my guitars because they're not set up to go that low. But I know why the Carcass thing is. It reminds me of Carcass Reek of Putrefaction. The guitar tone is very Reek of Putrefaction. It's just got that disgusting, horrible, incantation sort of vibe to it. Yeah, that's a good.
I think on the reworked one on Privilege of Evil, I think Tommy's vocals are very much like Bill Steer.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that. Well, we'll get into that. We'll talk about that after, as we go through the next 2 hours. But it's kind of interesting that they felt the need to move away from that, and clearly it was probably to be a little more commercially accessible and to elevate their profile. But he really, man, he still does some growls live, I believe. Even though Hutson, or how you pronounce it, Tommy Hutson, although he's got that killer growl, Tomi Kubasari has a really unique growl, man. It's just it's just so sewer guttural. It's just incredible. And yeah, the guitar tone reminds me a lot of Reek of Putrefaction. The production, nasty, swampy. It's really not that bad as far as production. I don't think it's that awful, to be honest with you. And it really wasn't that awful for me. Privilege and Excursing are both recycled and used on Privilege of Evil in '93. They're re-recorded. It's kind of doomy and deathy. It's kind of like taking a spiked baseball bat to the head when you're listening to this stuff. It's just like pummeling, right? And Privilege of Evil, probably my favorite track for sure. Excursing's also on the first EP, and it's also pretty badass. Only the title track doesn't reappear anywhere. Solid nods to Convulse here. There's very Convulse-like guitar tones. And also a good bit of Demigod. You hear that kind of in the overall arching sound as well. But like I said, it's more really Carcassy sort of to me. The Reek sort of, but not grind. It's not grindy. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10, which is kind of shocking because I'm not the demo guy. You know what I mean? I'm never that guy. I'm just like, give me the real clean production and give me a good, sound. But this one is not too bad. So, we'd have to have Ken or Dennis on probably to have an actual original here, I'm sure, So, all right, Jimmy, are you ready to go with Karelian?
Sure.
All right, let's start with Karelian.
I'll briefly mention the Privilege of Evil EP. It may as well be talked along with the Karelian Isthmus because
it actually comes out after, though, in terms of like.
Did it come out after?
It came out after, but it was recorded before.
Okay, so we were going to cover that then.
Yeah,
I mean, like I didn't have a physical copy until I don't know, like the last series of represses that Relapse did, but. I mean, like it was this was one of those albums from my high school years that resonated with me very deeply. Listening to it now, I still think it holds up, and it's really kind of one of a kind as far as Amorphis goes because we know that this is it's almost like for at least the first half of their catalog, really every album is almost kind of unto itself. Like they don't really repeat themselves at all. So I mean, there's some elements obviously, but the Karelian Isthmus, I mean, it was quite different too from like a lot of the other death metal that I was getting into at the time. With like all the Tampa bands and stuff. This was really cool, and I remember reading, like I only had this dub cassette copy of it, and looking at the song titles really just like always intrigued me because at the time I think I was even calling it the Karelian Isthmus when I was younger because I didn't know better, and I didn't know what that was, but it just kind of spoke to me like in a way that this is something sort of mystical and magical. I didn't know what the Calavela was or anything like that, but nor did I care. I mean, 9th, 10th grade, just listening to the music and just being kind of blown away by it was really quite different from everything else you were hearing at the time because it's definitely the very, I would say, beginnings of death doom, not quite what it kind of turned into, but like, you know, the Scandinavian way of doing it. Yeah, but in a lot of ways, like listening to it now, I feel like it's kind of like a Finnish bolt thrower. That's really the best way that I could describe this record. I mean, because a lot of it, I don't know that they were influenced by bolt thrower at the time. In fact, because I kind of hear like Fourth Crusade in there a bit, but I can't remember if Fourth Crusade came out after this or before it, but
same time.
Yeah, about the same time. Okay, yeah. So I don't know if it just to me that's I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it was pretty obvious that this was like that Finnish version of bolt thrower with a little bit more of a doom element to it and melody. But I mean, for a debut, it still holds up. It's I mean the vocals, as you said, Tommy, I think he was really one of my favorite growlers at that time because he just had such a deep resonating, kind of like what you like out of like, not to say it sounds like Michael Ackerfeld or anything, but it's kind of what you like about his vocal is that's just that really deep and just belching roar that is just awesome. And I mean, there's even some interesting things as far as like how were they influenced, in writing this, because death metal was pretty new at the time. And so you got to figure that there was some crossover, but I love the title track. I mean, the first track, Karelia, is really just draws you in. They do this very well a few times where that intro track kind of brings you into the world here. And the artwork is stellar.
Oh, man, it's so good.
It's the same artwork that they had since the beginning. So you can see the war. And like, I never really even got to see this until I got a copy or ended up seeing it, online so many years later because I have kind of a weird trajectory with Amorphis. But with the Exile of the Sons of Uslu, which was the first song I ever heard, that was like, that's the perfect statement for this record is that song. And really just kind of speaks to everything that you're going to kind of hear on here. Another thing I really noticed when I was listening to the song, The Lost Name of God, has sort of like an inverted Dead Skin Mask riff, Slayer. And it's very, very similar.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Different. What year did Seasons of the Abyss come out? That wouldn't have been till. Would that have been 92 as well? It would have been around this time.
Yeah, right.
1990.
Yeah. When was
90?
that?
Okay, so it's very possible that they were influenced by Slayer as well as I think other sort of, I don't want to say like new wave British heavy metal, but we kind of start to see some of that later. It's just pure. I really would love to know really what they were influenced with, because to me this was very fresh and I want to say like completely never heard of before, but it's pretty new sounding in the way that they did their death metal. And I never really felt like they were going to, that this was sort of a one and done as far as their discography goes. And it's kind of interesting to think, what would they have been like if they would have been more of a bolt thrower type band and kept, not to say that bolt thrower released the same record, but I mean, they have, they kind of exist in a certain area and they're not going to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Or what would bolt thrower have been like if they turned into a psychedelic prog band? Kind of fun to think about how these bands had different
trajectories
for where they were going to go. Like I wonder if they knew, like, this is where we're doing right now, but we're not going to do this, going forward. I mean, and, because at the time they were pretty much in that scene with the Relapse and the Nuclear Blast rosters that were coming out. But man, I mean, it's a great record. I mean, it's pretty basic. I mean, like, you're not going to really hear like differentiate a hell of a lot other than some of the melodies that they use in the songs. But I like that in terms of like, I don't know who produced this.
Skogsberg.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
Sunlight.
I mean,
It's Sunlight. Yeah.
It sounds a little like he gave them a kind of a more, a sound that was a little more unique to them rather than the buzzsaw kind of. It's a little bit in there, but these guys weren't playing ridiculously fast or anything, so they didn't have to like, I can't imagine it was that much harder to produce than say some of the other stuff that was coming out that was difficult to do with the drums and things. So, because like even the blast beats in here, there's like some bomb blast Mike Smith style stuff, but it doesn't really go crazy beyond that. It's pretty straightforward.
It's a little more new. It's a little more nuanced. I don't think you don't really hear entombed, or you say it's got a bolt thrower vibe to it. I get what you're saying, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like it is, but it isn't.
Right.
At least to my ears, I don't hear that similarity in terms of where that's a great point. Bolt thrower, love them, but they do kind of make the same album to album. It's kind of the same,
right? It's like Cannibal. They've got they've got a formula that they kind of stick well for them, and that's what I mean, look, I'm sure there was a lot of people that would have loved Amorphis to keep doing just straight Death Doom records, but again, I find Parallel interesting because it's interesting to see the bands that kind of were similar at the beginning, but went completely different paths, like they did. It's fun to think about. So
I think it's a great point, Jimmy, to make that, and it was one that I was going to tie up at the end, but it's a good one to make now, that this band really, really did change from album to album for most of the first half of their catalog. It's the latter half that starts to get a little samey, and we'll talk about that the next time through. It's all good, but it they really did evolve. They evolved. They didn't just stay in one spot going, okay, we'll just make the Fourth Crusade over, or we'll just make Karelian the next time. You know what I mean? And that they didn't do that. And Devin has a really good point. This record's super underrated. I completely agree. And going back to it and listening to it for the first time in a long time, and this is one that got away from me. I had the original Relapse with the O card, over the little O card on the top of the CD. I don't know where the fuck it's at. I didn't pull my CDs because you guys all have me covered. And I've just been feeling too shitty to dig around in boxes to find them all. But this is one, and the last two that I don't own. I own all the other stuff. And, man, I got to get this thing. I'm going to get it on vinyl because that artwork just too fucking badass. I mean, this and the next album are their best two album covers by light years for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I would say that it's underrated. I mean, maybe in the realm of Finnish death metal, but it's still a pretty revered record as far as those early days and what it represented. And for me, just in closing with this record, I mean, like it was, I kind of moved off of the band after this, but I mean, like it was there very early for me, and it still resonates today.
All right, Peter, how about you? I'm gonna be right back, guys. I gotta tie my hair.
Yeah, like Jimmy, you mentioned the bolt thrower influence. I actually had that probably down more for Preludes of Evil, though still touches of it here. I think definitely the band were influenced a lot by Paradise Lost Gothic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you hear probably more in Tales, but interesting at the time, the band were saying that they were listening to less and less death metal when they were making this album, and they were starting to listen to the likes of the Doors and Pink Floyd and some of the 70s prog stuff, and that's probably where you hear the sort of like, obviously there's a lot of like melancholy and melody comes into the songwriting now compared to Preludes of Evil. I know we're probably going to come back to that, but it was recorded before these songs, and you see that progression straight away, even though it was a year later that this was recorded. I think it was May '92.
Yes,
Preludes was about mid '91. So, I mean, that's Exile of the Sons of Uslu, like I mentioned, that, like Jimmy, it was the first song of theirs I heard, and it's actually what I think finds interesting about the Karelian Isthmus is that when Essa was writing a lot of stuff, he was basing it on like mythologies from around the world, not just Finnish. So that song's actually about it's from the Ulster cycle of Irish mythology. So it's about a guy called Nisha and his brothers who flee to Scotland. If there's a woman, Deirdre, that the King of Ulster wants to marry, and they're trying to flee from them. Then they come back, and there's a bit of a battle, and then the three brothers get killed. So I think that song particularly even just mirrors that kind of storytelling with there's a really, really great opening riff in that song that seeks into a really beautiful harmony. And then it settles into this sort of doomy, sorrowful sort of riff. that I think flows with the storytelling, and then it climaxes with this sort of triumphant ending, which is then the battle where Nisha and his brothers died. It's a place called Eamon Macha, which was the seat of the King of Ulster in Armagh here in Ireland. But they even have a song about Cornwall further on. It's the song signed from the north side, which has, I hear, like sort of like Middle Eastern type melodies in that song, and that's something that sort of comes up a lot in their material as they go through it. Probably even comes more to the fore, I think, on future albums. That sort of mystical type melodies that they incorporate into the songwriting. But yeah, I think another big influence at the time for them sort of progressing their style was they always quote Sisma, the other Finnish band, because they progressed quite a lot from their demos through their first album, yeah, and obviously it's more like surf rock and stuff like that there later on. But this shows you how.
Wait, Peter, who did you say?
Sisma.
Oh, Zysma. Okay, yeah, and that I'm embarrassed to say this. I don't know anything by them. I know that's ridiculous to say, but I just don't know them. I got to dig into them. But yes, yeah.
So a lot of those bands like start off like Carcass Worship,
yeah,
and then quickly progress, and they're kids, and how quickly they are progressing through. Because you mentioned earlier on like how they formed with the previous band's Final Solution, which was a thrash band, and then they went to Abhorrence, and then they're getting to the point where they've gone to extreme as they can go, and then they're now looking outside metal and bringing in all these different influences
right
into the songwriting, and they're moving along, and they're not even 20 at this stage. But yeah, there's some re-recordings from obviously Privilege to Evil here. There's the song Black Embrace, which it kind of loses the sort of the dirginess of Privilege of Evil, that kind of production. One of my favorite songs of theirs is Misery Path. And then they also did a reworking of Pilgrimage. That was Pilgrimage from Darkness from Privilege of Evil. So yeah, I have it here, just the CD. I don't have any of these in vinyl, but that's just the Nuclear Blast CD came out here.
I just ordered the vinyl while you guys were talking. Sickness.
But Jim, you said that at this point you sort of dropped off for a while. It's interesting because I got this after Tales, and the only song I knew from it was the Exile of the Sons of Uslu. So going back, didn't hear it. That sort of, like I said, closer to the pure death metal sound was interesting. So I sort of maybe didn't appreciate it as much when I first heard it because I thought it was a step back. But now, I think Devin's right. It is a classic and funny death metal.
Yeah, is that it, Peter? Do you have anything?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was probably, I believe I got Tuonela, and then I got Tales, and then I think by that time I probably grabbed Universum, and I think this was the fourth one I got, and I just bought it again, of course, as you do. And when I first heard this, I was like, okay, it's it's pretty good death metal, but man, the times I've revisited, and especially this time, I was like, fuck, this album is so good, man. This album is very, to me, it's got a unique voice in that era of death metal. And yes, it's not nearly as progressive or, shall we say, flowery maybe, or folky flowery, like, as progressive as Tales, and certainly not anywhere near like Elegy or any of the ones that we're going to get into in a bit here shortly here. But man, it's just a really, really well done. It sounds great. Tommy's vocals are fucking, man, I think you said, Jimmy, man, literally, I'm like, this dude is just a fucking amazing death metal singer. Just so, I don't think he sounds like Michael, but I get why you're saying that. He's got kind of a unique voice. I think he's way more guttural in terms of like deeper sounding than Michael. Michael had that raspiness to his voice with a lot of power behind it. This guy is more, he's a little less rasp. It's more guttural. It's more gurgle, you know, than anything. But you can still understand what he's saying. You know, for me, you can tell they have a much bigger budget, obviously. The guitars are super thick and fat, heavy, lots of single note work throughout this, lots of chugging, but importantly, lots of melodic singular tremolo pick stuff. Not black metal tremolo, but tremolo in terms of like multiple notes as opposed to just that kind of tremolo. You can tell they had a much bigger budget, and the production, while not mind-blowing, is still quite good for that era. The tracks are never monotonous, or they're never monotonous. They're enjoyable to listen, or not enjoyable to listen to at all. You can also hear, you said it, Peter, you can also hear a lot of early Paradise Lost, particularly with the single note or arpeggiated note work. That's where I hear a lot of that Gothic and Paradise Lost or Lost Paradise stuff in there. Standout tracks for me are the opener, The Gathering, melodic, super crushing, Black Embrace, fucking killer track. Exile of the Sons of, however you say that, Sulu or Usulu. Great track. Lots of tandem harmonized guitar work a la Maiden, Lizzie, that thing that was happening with new wave of British heavy metal. That's how they pull that influence into the songs. This is kind of the start of the melodic tandem lead melody line stuff that they start to do, which becomes much more pronounced as we go along, where Tommy's playing a lot of the rhythms, but then he'll jump in on a, you know, Asa's playing like a melody line on the guitar, which either mimics the vocal line or precursors the vocal line or sets it completely apart. Sometimes Tommy joins in, sometimes he's just doing the heavy riffs behind it. The vocals are savage. I dig. Here you go. This is to you, Jimmy. I hear bits of Opeth in The Lost Name of the God. Pretty sure Mike had to have been listening to this album, but then again, was Mike before that, or he was after, right?
After, yeah.
He was after. So I think Mike might have been listening to this album, man. There's no doubt in my mind.
I think so too.
Yeah, that song in particular, The Lost Name of God, it just very Opethian. Let's see, Pilgrim is pronounced blast, but they're also super eerie synths that remind me weirdly of Typo Negative in there. That's kind of strange. The chugs on this track are fucking killer as they speed up and then culminate in those lead fill type riffs that Isa and Tommy have made famous. Love the riffs on Signs from the North Side and the semi-Arabic scales they use, which really becomes a huge thing coming up here. Probably major Locrian or Phrygian. That's for all you music nerds out there. I didn't work it out, but that's what it sounds like. The cover of Abhorrence's track, Vulgar, Peter? Necrolarity is a very solid closer. Honestly, man, I love this album, but I do get why they go further into the folky prog thing, because as you so eloquently pointed out, and I thought it, but I didn't write it down. They are young guys. They're 18, 19, 20-year-old guys. They are absorbing all this material that, you know, as a dude now, I'm 10 years older than most of these guys. I've already been there, done that. So it's like when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh, that's right. They're younger. They're just absorbing some of this stuff, you know, the classic rock, the prog rock, the Crimson, the Yes, the Genesis stuff. It's all coalescing into this new direction they're moving in. So, and I believe was that the album or was it? No, Tales is the album where the Kalalava from Keith Bosley.
Yeah.
They also took, I think, lyrics on this album, Isthmus, from a Finnish poem source, right? Like traditional, right? Did you mention it?
Yeah, they took some of it. Obviously, the album, the title is all. It's based on a piece of land that's been in Russian control and Finnish control. It's contentious for years. So I always thought the cover art is probably that battle for the freedom of that particular piece of land. Interestingly, the cover is painted by Miran Kim, who did the early Incantation album covers.
Okay.
So you can see that.
No kidding.
Okay.
But
Cool. Good.
Here's my tidbit for you. I used to in my town here, we had a wee shop. Used to get Metal Maniacs in back in the early '90s. So I used to go down and buy it all the time. And if you remember, one of the guys who wrote for Metal Maniacs back in the early '90s, a guy called Don Kay.
Oh, Don Kay. Yeah.
He absolutely panned this album.
Did he really?
Yeah. Said it was boring. He told him to rethink their career. And what's funny is that they were already ahead of him. They were leaving death metal behind.
Yeah, that's funny, man. How about that? So he shit on it in Maniacs, or in because wasn't
Metal
he?
Maniacs.
Don Kay was also in Kerrang as well, I believe. Yeah.
It was in Metal Maniacs, and he slagged off whoever wrote their bio, and at the time it was Catherine Ludwig was the editor, and she put an editor's note in. She completely disagreed with him. He said anyone who liked this needed their head looked at, and she says, "Well, I must need a lobotomy because I absolutely adore it."
Nice. Well, we could talk to Marty about that. He probably remembers those days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, Logan, the deep dives are back for now. I gotta, as we approach the fall, maybe they'll start to increase with more alacrity here. We'll see. Good stuff. All right. So for me, easy 9 out of 10. Easy 9 out of 10. I could probably even go a little higher with it. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it's a 9 out of 10 for sure. And I would say the only slight drawback I would say is that, and Jimmy, you pointed it out, that unlike the next few albums, there is a slight bit of sameness, but it's not overtly. It's still all enjoyable. Whereas the next couple of albums, man, there's very little, it's very little uniformity. It's kind of all over the map, which is what I love about this band. All right, so yeah, 9 out of 10 for me all day long. And yeah, just the first half tonight we're going to do the 3 EPs, which we're going to get to the next EP now. So Peter, we'll start with you with Privilege. And I forgot to mention real fast on Karelian, came out 11/1/92 on Relapse, Sunlight Studios, Skogsberg and Amorphis producing. Devin, you mentioned something about Nuclear Blast. I'm not sure what that is. Probably a licensing thing. I don't really know. They did have some differences between U.S., North American, and European distribution. So that might speak to what's going on there. I didn't get that far into the detail of it. So,
well, what happened back then was Nuclear Blast was a distributor for Relapse in Europe.
Oh, there we go. That's it. That's what it is.
So, well, actually, I think they haven't even touched upon it. So here's I have the probably see the old Slimline.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I love those. Love those. Wish they do that with all CDs, but
yeah, I have a whole batch of Slimlines. Absolutely love them. All the old EPs. Stuff.
Although stick that around. Let me see the back quick. Yeah,
that's
the problem with the backs is then you don't have the artwork in the back because it's almost too skinny. But you have to open it up to see the the fold over for the artwork on the back.
Yeah, so kind of reminds me of Dismember's Pieces EP. The way the picture is.
God, look at how fucking young they look there.
Yeah.
Real quick on this one. This came out 12/2/93, so almost a full year later. But it was recorded earlier. It was recorded in 91 at TTT Studio in Helsinki. And I know that guy. I know Tolkien. I got to look who that guy is.
Stradivarius.
That's it. Stradivarius, dude. Yep. This was intended to be a split with Incantation. All but song 3 and 6 were re-recorded for Karelian. Track 1 is The Pilgrimage. 2 and 4 same titles. 3 re-recordings of songs from the first demo. Yeah. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, my notes said this is where they were clearly influenced by Bolt Thrower, Paradise Lost. Just like the demo, it's their purest death metal release. While there's some synths used, smattered here and there, pretty much is pretty dirgy throughout. Some of the riffs are really suffocating in places. A lot of tension, especially in that Black Embrace song. Prelude to Evil has there's a sense come in and add a sort of eerie, spooky atmosphere to that. But again, crushing, really brutal riffs. Misery Path, one of my favorites of the early catalog. It's really heavy, doomy. Has a bit of melody underlying throughout that there song. Again, another version of Vulgar Necrolarity, which was the Jeff, I think you mentioned, which had Duca from Abhorrence on vocals, and I believe that was part of the deal with Relapse. Is that because they thought they were signing Abhorrence, they asked for that track to be included?
They did. They sent their demo tape instead of the Abhorrence stuff. They thought they were signing Abhorrence, and they get the demo tape, and it's actually the Amorphis demo.
Yeah. Excursion from Existence, like I mentioned, the Bill Steer-like vocals. Very oppressive slow riffs, atmospheric synths do reappear in this track as well. Gives it a bit of a foreboding sort of feel about it. The three of those songs then obviously featured on Karelian Isthmus. Yeah, but it's a really, really cracking EP. One of my favorites from that Slimline series back then.
All right, Jimmy, what you got on Privilege?
Yeah, I've got the cassette tape equivalent of
Nice.
the copy that Pete has there. Kind of actually noticed. I think it kind of looks the same as yours with the Underground series Relapse.
Is that OG or is that later?
Yeah, it's OG. I mean, so like in those days when I was buying, I've got a lot of behind me here. A lot of those are my cassettes from my 9th and 10th grade years when I was buying a lot of stuff. So they're definitely like relics at this point. But I think in those days I can't remember if I ever came across the Karelian Isthmus on cassette tape. I probably didn't because I would have picked it up. But I don't even remember buying this. But I imagine I saw it on the rack and was like, well, that's all there is. I'll take it. And of course, come to find out that most of the stuff was already on the Karelian Isthmus, as Pete was talking about. Probably just a little bit more of a demo-ish kind of sound to it compared to the full length. I know this was released after, but I believe it was recorded before. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
the band weren't happy about it at all, apparently.
Yeah, recorded before, but released after. Yeah, it was kind of a bridge to Tales.
I like the sound on this. I think it's murky and just kind of fits the songs well, and it kind of gives the songs a little bit more of a different identity than they sound like on the full length, which is cool. I like that. And the two tracks that are on here, Excursion from Existence and Privilege of Evil, kind of just have that, are kind of in line with that sort of sound, that they were just pure like murky death doom. Whereas they definitely started to focus a little bit more on melodic stuff for the full length. But this is like a relic from the past. And I remember like getting stuff from Relapse and Nuclear Blast, and it was always, I have some stuff that has both the names on the CD or whatever, because
really?
you guys were saying, like they had, it was a distribution kind of thing, like they had some kind of partnership at the time.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these comps had bands from both rosters as well. So it was kind of like, it was kind of a crossover in those days before they sort of split. But yeah, man, good stuff. We have very few examples of what they were like in their true Death Doom days, so it's worth having. I think they've repressed this since then too. I think there's some newer editions you can get of it. It's worth getting if you like that first one.
It's definitely worth getting. Absolutely, 100%. This is another one that I missed, because I don't know, I just missed it. And man, that fucking guitar tone on Pilgrimage from Darkness. Oh, it's so sick. As a guitar player, man, you're just like, oh, what did they do? How did they get that sound, man? The harsh vocals are killer. maybe the only issue with this EP for me is that the drums are a little bit out in the mix, a little high, especially the snare at times jumps out at you and kind of, catches you a little off guard. That's the only thing I would argue. But it's not anything that's like, it's a sharp snare sound. It's not that thwappy dead sound. It's still a good sound. It's just it sometimes bleeds through the mix a little high. That would be my only thing. You know what this album reminds me a little bit of, or this EP rather? It reminds me quite a bit of Edge of Sanity's Spectral Sorrows. It just has that weird fucking sound to it that you're like, you can't, it's eerie and creepy and nasty, but something about it just sounds so freaking cool and weird that you're like, yeah, I like this, So it's Spectral Sorrows to me. Black Embrace, super dense and heavy as balls, crushingly atmospheric. The spooky keys on that are killer. Misery Pass, again, drums are a little high in the mix, but not bothersomely so. Mostly, like I said, snare cutting through harshly, but it could be the upload I was listening to. But Excursing, this is totally dank as fuck. That's what I wrote down. Like, what about, what's wrong with a 58-year-old guy saying totally dank, dude? Probably a lot, let's be honest. But anyway, so somehow I missed this, and I've been a fan for a long time, but this one escaped me. Somehow reminds me, again, a lot of Spectral Sorrows. So heavy, atmospheric, and dense. I wish they'd done a little bit more material like this. I'm not going to lie. I could have used a little bit more of this. But, where they go next is not a bad move at all. This is a 9.5 for me. I really fucking love this. I got to figure out where I can grab it. I don't know if it's out there on vinyl. I don't know. I think I'd rather it on CD, because the reason I got Karelian was on vinyl just now was because I want the artwork and to have it on vinyl. But I'm 99% sure I still have that CD somewhere. It got separated from the Amorphis group and, ended up somewhere else. I still think I have it. So, yeah, killer EP. Killer EP.
I think it featured on some of the reissues of the Karelian.
I think it does. I think you're right. And that, but I don't think mine's an OG. I'm 99% sure I got that in 01, so it's not a reissue, I doubt. And it is a relapse. Like I said, it's got the J card or the O card. I think they call it an O card.
O card, yeah, covers it. Yeah.
And like I remember the first Nile I bought was In Their Darkened Shrines, and that has the O card on it too. And I have quite a few of those relapses from back then where I got early 2000s. They weren't that old, you know what I mean? It just wasn't that old at that point in time. So, all right, we are on to Black Winter Day, which I do own on vinyl and CD, but I didn't pull that so because these guys have it. So, Jimmy, I think we're starting with you. Yeah, am I right?
We're starting with the EP, or are we starting with the full length?
Well, I think Tales comes first, so it does.
I'm sorry?
Tales was released first.
Yeah, Tales was released first. EP came after, yeah. So I'll be right back, guys. Go for it, Jimmy. Start in.
Yeah, I don't think I could talk about the EP before we talk about the record. Tales from the Thousand Lakes. And I actually, at the time, I got to hear one of the tracks off of this on the Death is Just the Beginning 3 comp. Yeah. This was like the 2 CD set. And this had a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
That got
the T-Pack one.
Yeah, it's still the 2 CD. Surprised that it's still in decent shape, because a lot of these cases would usually break. It's still that black middle one. And still got the hype sticker on there.
Nice.
Guaranteed total death. This had Forgotten Sunrise, which is a choice track. I don't know, for whatever reason, for me, I didn't really pay attention to this at the time when it came out. I don't remember. I think I was just listening to other stuff, and as much as I enjoyed the debut, I don't know what it was, but I don't. That was a weird time. I mean, this is let's see, 94. So I'm a junior in high school, I think, by this point. And like I had like this sort of early explosion of death metal, you know, in those early 90s. And I kind of didn't go crazy on it. I stuck to like a certain amount of bands, but I don't know if I was ready for really engulfing myself into everything that I could find in those days. And I didn't really come back to Amorphis until way later. I didn't come back to the band until Silent Waters, 2007.
Right.
Yeah, if you could believe it. I don't know why that is. I think in those days, I might have even heard a couple tracks. And I remember like this album really kind of took me to be, I think, a little bit more mature in my, in my listening. And also, like at first I didn't really like the clean vocals too much. And I just don't think I ever really gave the band the time for whatever reason. I don't remember why. I skipped out on them for years and years and was listening to other stuff. And, when I came back around to them, early, mid 2000s, is when I really went back. Well, not to everything, but definitely went back to this at some point in those years. I don't remember exactly when it was, but ended up buying the CD for it and listening to it quite a bit because I'd always loved the cover art. Probably one of my favorite cover arts of all time, for sure. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
painting.
So mystical, isn't it?
Yeah, and then as you can see, I've got the Black Winter Day flag there, which I've had hanging there for like 7 years now. I got it at a show, one of their shows. Regardless. So, I mean, like, I would like, as much as I wish I could say that I was like in with the band all those years, like I just wasn't there, and it took me coming back, being a little bit more mature, and I think to really appreciate this record. And this record, I mean, it's definitely got some elements of the debut. There still is the Death Doom is there, the great death vocals, obviously a bigger focus on melody. And yeah, I think what took me the longest time, I was saying, Jeff, was that I didn't really, not that there's a lot of clean vocals. The guy they used for the clean vocals, I mean, he was only on like 3 or 4 songs here, and I didn't really like it. Yeah, but that grew on me over time, and I realized that it just took a little bit of listening a few times to really get, because I think this whole record is kind of perfect from start to finish in that it's all kind of meant to be listened to from beginning to end, and it's like some of those early records in those days, like always, like it was, you have to listen to it from start to finish to really kind of get it. And man, there's just like so many things I can say, like so many ads. I mean, it's really a unique album that I think a lot of bands these days owe, especially a lot of like anybody doing melodic death metal owes something to Tales from the Thousand Lakes. I mean, this record is deathy, it's doomy, it's melodic.
Yeah, Devin mentions like bands like Swallow the Sun.
Yeah, Swallow the Sun, like Insomnium, stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
All these guys have something to owe to this record. And I mean, like I said, doomy, deathy, melodic, atmospheric. It's psychedelic. It's catchy. It's a little weird too. Like it's got kind of a weird sort of thing going on that I just feel like packaged up with all those terms, the way the music sounds, it's just so, I just never feel like this has been done ever again. Anything, I mean, not things like it, but it just has its own sound. And, even when you put it on and you listen, when you start with they do another intro track here, Thousand Lakes. I mean, that keyboard part really just brings you into this realm again. Just really, it's this dark, murky, magical, fantastical place that you're just right there with that intro track.
Well, it's extremely evocative of the album artwork. I mean, it really it takes you to that place if you allow it.
There's nothing like when a record, when they capture it with the artwork, and this does that
perfect.
Yeah. And man, I just like, it's just so much good stuff. Like I said, it's just so catchy and just it's fun, but it's got a lot of emotion, a lot of moods to it. And you can start to see some of the other influence bleeding in with like, some NWO BHM in there, some Maidens in there. Just the psychedelia is starting to kind of creep in a little bit with the keyboards and stuff, and they definitely take some chances on this album, which is cool. I mean, like in Magic and Mayhem, I mean, you've got near disco shit going on.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a weird choice, but it kind of works actually. I mean, it doesn't really bother me. Like it doesn't feel like they just feel like it was forced. It's just kind of, they somehow made it seamless. And man, Black Winter Day. I mean, that's the song that's, when you look at the picture of the bird just across the lake with the in the moonlights, with the whatever that is called.
It's like Molnir. It's a Finnish. What do you call it? Ukon Fasala or something, or
yeah.
My Finnish.
Well, I mean that, and we see that symbol pretty, often in.
Oh, you talking about the Ankh looking?
Yeah.
The
thing that's in the water. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the song Black Winter Day. I mean, it's like when you hear that keyboard part, I just see the bird flying. And it's just in my head. It's just like, and I think this is also. Is this where they really start to lean into the Kalavela stuff?
Yeah, all the lyrics are pretty much from that.
I wish I would have had more time to because I'm not really a big, I don't really focus too much on lyrics.
Neither do I anymore.
But a band like this, I really want to, because I really love that about this band, and we're going to talk about it more as we go along. But maybe I'll prep a little bit more for the second half, and maybe Pete can kind of fill in some of that, because I mean, the Kalavela, it's such a perfect wealth of information for them to draw from their heritage and their their mythology of their land, and to me, like when I tell people that aren't into metal, like that's, when you find bands like Amorphis that do that sort of thing, that they, it's a global thing. To find bands from other countries that really tap into their histories and things like that, to me, like really just is a huge drop.
Enslaved did it quite a bit in the early, with Viking Ligger and with
black metal bands do it. And, and not that these guys are black metal, but it's amazing that they're still kind of focusing on the Kalavela. And I mean, this is really cool. I mean, because and anybody should, especially if you're like a Tolkien fan, because Tolkien, I mean, he was highly influenced by the Kalavela.
Yep.
I mean, that's what he wanted Middle Earth. He wanted it to be England's version of the Kalavela or Greek mythology. That's what he wanted to write for his country. And so I think there's probably a lot of really amazing stories in this thing that I just have not had the time to delve into, and I may not have an easy time with. I don't know how I bet you it's not easy reading, but
I think the lyrics they take though are quite simple, so they're like interpretation from the stories. But when you actually read them in the booklet, they're straightforward. So it takes you to sort of maybe go back and maybe read the stories to get the background, because like Black Winter Day, that's a story of some guy who transforms into the form of an eagle to escape from, I can't remember what it was exactly, but that's that song's about.
Which, by the way, as an aside, I tried desperately to use that image from the EP for the thumbnail, but I could not find a high enough res version picture uploaded to use it, because I really love that cover, man. And I'd already used the Tails cover to do the interview with Opus, so I was like, I'm not gonna do that again. So I think I still came up with a cool looking one, but I was like, man, I really want to use that the Black Winter Day EP, and I couldn't, man. Like your flag, Jimmy, on your door back there, I've always admired that, man. I'm like, man, I want that fucking, I want a poster of that to hang on my wall or something like that. Where'd you get that?
They had a bunch of flags the first time I saw them live on the Red Cloud tour.
Okay.
They had, or no, it was for the next tour, but it was, they had that, and they had a few other flags, and of course there was like no way.
Speaking of which, we should mention they are coming with Dark Tranquility in September and October. Coming to, for me, I'm going to try to catch them in Baltimore, I believe, for the first time ever. I can't believe I almost went in 16, I believe it was, for Red Cloud. Was that about? Yeah, that would have been around then, I believe. Yeah. Or might have been. When was Queen of Time? 19, 20?
Yeah, I was like 18.
18. Okay. Maybe it was then that I almost went, and then something came up and I couldn't go. But I definitely got to catch that. So yeah. We ready to move on to Peter?
Just real quickly, just in closing, it's a 10 out of 10 record for me, and I think I would really 10 out of 10s, but I don't. This is probably the only 10 out of 10 for Amorphis for me, but I would go as far as to say this is the finest record to come out of Finland as far as the metal scene goes.
Wow,
a lot of great Finnish stuff for sure, but I mean in terms of the history and what it did, I think to me, I think you'd be hard pressed to find. A more.
It's definitely up there. There's no question.
Yeah, and they just really seem like they really progressed naturally into this record from the first one. So
yeah, you're right. That's a good way to put it. It wasn't a forced sort of thing. It was a very natural evolution into this, which, quite frankly, even into the next phase, which we're going to get to after this album,
right? Because they changed quite a bit. But I like that this still retains a lot of the Death Doom elements, and it's they're still what they were for the record before. But it also, for anybody that was getting into them at the time, should have realized, man, they're not going to make, if this is what the second record is, then they're not.
Yeah, they're not making Karelian again. No way. Yeah. All right, Peter, your observations. Oh, I should mention real quick before we move on, because I keep forgetting to do this. This came out July 12th, 94. So we just hit the 30th anniversary, right? Last month. Yeah, that's why they did they just released the Tales live thing from the thing that I talked to Opu about. I forget the name of the club. There's a club in Finland, a big one that they played over the pandemic. I'll look it up. But came out Relapse, Sunlight Studios again, Sweden, Skogsberg again, Amorphis co-producing. Lyrics mainly taken from 89 translation of Kaleva by Keith Bosley. We forgot to mention here a big addition of keyboardist Kasper Martinsen, who adds a huge dynamic to the sound, especially in the songwriting area for this album. I did not, it's essentially a loose concept album about Finnish folklore. I do not have the clean vocalist. Who was it?
It's a guy called Villa.
Okay. I don't know why I didn't put that down. Missed that. Let me see.
Because he features in about 3 songs.
Yeah, I got him here. I got it. Villa Tuomi. Tuomi. There you go. So yeah, Kasper Martinsen comes in on keyboards. He doesn't stick around very long, but which they do have a lot until recently. They've had kind of revolving keyboardist.
I I went back to read some old interviews from magazines I have still. And it's interesting what to say, why he hung about for about a year, but they said he didn't really like their drinking on tour.
He didn't like what?
He wasn't too keen on the rest of the band, drinking a lot when they're on tour and partying. And
who was it? The clean singer?
No, Kasper, the keyboard.
Oh, Kasper. Okay, the keyboard.
I guess actually calls him jokingly a nerd.
Okay.
I think he wanted to go back to uni to study.
Okay, gotcha.
So he needs, but yeah, he brings in that like vintage Moog sound a lot.
Yep,
throughout the
Moog
songs.
comes in, and the story on that is, if you watch my interview with Opu, was they found a Moog in the corner of Sunlight Studios, and they're like, hey, it was all dusty and covered up with stuff, and nobody had used it for a while, and they're like, because Moog's been around since the 60s, but I mean, this was probably an 80s version, I don't know, or a late 70s version. And they cleaned it up and, kind of go with it. And that's my only, we'll get to me in a minute. My only slight non-10 out of 10 for this is the keyboards, and I'll get to it in a minute. Like them, don't love them at times. But go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I think, Jimmy, you mentioned obviously the final track and the disco bit, but I was reading through in those old interviews, they call this album their Russian disco record.
The Rush disco record.
Russian disco.
Oh, Russian.
Press.
Okay.
So I think another Sunlight Studios recording. But for me, the bolt thrower influence is faded away, and I think the main influence in Death Doom is Gothic.
Yep.
Paradise Lost Gothic. They said at the time as well that they couldn't make another Karelian. They were done with that style. They were starting to grow out of death metal. I think Estes said it was an interview I found back in Terrorizer, 1994. He says that he wasn't even listening to death metal at all at that point. He was just listening to Pink Floyd and Iron Maiden, and a lot of 70s stuff. He said he was sick of the production of death metal. He said in his opinion it was crap. He wanted stuff that sounded a lot better, so he wanted to go back to like analog, and that's why he prefers to use a lot of analog equipment even today these days. But I think this album is kind of an example of what was kind of happening in death metal in 1994. Some bands were changed completely, but others were trying to then experiment and expand the sound. So you had obviously Tales and what Amorphis were doing, and then another big one for me in that year was Tiamat's Wild Honey.
Oh yeah, very good. Yes.
So they're two key albums for me, and because I was at this time,
Hadn't thought of that one at all.
Yeah, I was 16, and unlike you, Jeff, I went to death metal, and then it's 3 albums like this. When I get a wee bit into my early 20s, I start to try and dig into prog 70s prog, and all that psychedelic music and stuff.
Complete opposite for me. Yes, yes, and Crimson and Rush, and those were all the 70s. But I'm 10, 12 years older than you, so I mean, it makes sense, right?
And we'll come to that later on, but it helps me start to appreciate those albums, which I didn't at the time. That sort of
I bet.
But I mean, they really were striving to be original. This for me, this album vies with another album for my outright favorite of Amorphis. I mean, it's as you would say, Jeff. It's got mega banger after mega banger. So
I was waiting for somebody to do it. I was going to start doing it soon. So good, man. You know, I got to bring that. We're talking about bringing back the deep dives. I got to bring back the mega bangers, man. I haven't been talking about banging enough. God damn it! I've been too sick. Very good, Peter. Thank you for that.
Yeah. But yeah, the opener, 1,000 Lakes, I mean, it's so iconic for me. It just brings back so many memories to being 16 again. It starts off a wee bit melancholic, but then it builds up in this really triumphant and uplifting climax. Gets you ready then for the Into Hiding song. And again, Death Doom classic. Again, Gothic's written all over this here one.
Yes.
Phil's clean vocals do come in this song. It's the first time it comes in. And then it starts to shift into that 70s styles groove. There's some Sabbath type bass lines in this song. And then the organs then come in to bring it to the end. And that's what I start seeing their songwriting. They seem to like bring in these melodies. And they can reuse them throughout a song, but it never outstays their welcome. And then they start to bring songs to like a crescendo. They gallop to the end. And there's one other band around this time in the mid-late 90s who started to do this, and that's another band I'm a big fan of, which kind of like Amorphis changed styles dramatically from their beginning, is Therion.
Oh, for sure, yes.
So
for sure.
Their late 90s, it's a similar type of songwriting approach where they bring in a melody or whatever and then reuse it a few times in the song, change, bring it back again, and then a crescendo, just a rush to the end. That's a classic song for me. Castaway, that's another one. I mean, that's synonymous with Amorphis, I think. Classic folkish melody, really catchy. So many twists and turns. Again, a wee bit of that Middle Eastern sort of melodies appearing in this one as well. Wee bit of spacey guitars as well, soars in along with a Pink Floyd kind of influence for me. Great solo as well. That's another thing, I guess, the solos start to become such a highlight in the band.
Absolutely.
First Doom, good track, good Death Doom, one solid one. Black Winter Day, Spooky Keyboards probably is the big hit from the album. Obviously, they released the EP afterwards.
Yep.
The keyboards sort of center around the song as they weave around, so the rhythm before there's a sort of melancholic melody comes to the fore, and then Phyllis Clean vocals come back in to support Tommy's sort of growls. And Drown Maid, another one where Gothic's influence is strong there, probably the strongest of the album for me. This is just sheer bliss. I've written down here, it's an upbeat headbanger. With guitar melodies and harmonies that seemingly continue to build and build and build until that heavy riff comes in. Kind of struggles to contain them because they soon re-emerge before the shifting shape into a steady rhythm and a melody repeating itself. But it's so good, so for me it's not really an issue. Rather than going through all these rest of the songs here, I'll just go straight down to Magic and Mayhem with that chugging riff that sets a foundation for some of the most playful and dancey beats and keys in the album, and it really is Amorphis going disco for a bit. Kind of sets you up for what's going to come next.
Yeah.
So yeah, classic album. I don't rank too many albums 10 out of 10. I don't know if this is probably maybe a 9.9 out of 10. I've only really one or two albums I'd ever say are 10 out of 10s.
Peter hedging with that .10 right there. I love it, man. I always do mine in quarter increments. You just went to 10. Gotta love it. Maybe I'll readjust. I'm not sure. I'm very close to you. I'm not quite a 10 out of 10, and I'll tell you why in 1 sec here, but it's damn close.
Yeah.
But,
Takes me back to summer '94.
I
had my first proper job on a building site all summer working with my uncle.
How old were you?
I was 16. So I had plenty of money back then to buy albums. So come Saturday, I was up to Belfast and I was buying as much death metal and doom metal and black metal as I could. And that's another thing too. That cover, if you think of some of the iconic albums that came out that year, Emperors and the Nightside Eclipse, kind of reminds me of that feel of the Scandinavia. I know Finland probably isn't technically Scandinavia, but those mystical sort of forests and lakes and all the different like creatures and wood nymphs and stuff like that, and fairies and stuff that these guys are singing about. It does transport you away to another realm completely.
Yeah, and I think my only gripe about that is they dropped that logo. I know why they dropped the logo, because it was more associated with the death metal side of them, but man, that logo is fucking killer. I love that logo. I wish they would have stayed with it, but I understand some bands stay with their logo forever because they, Bolt Thrower being one, or I off the top of my head I'd have to look at albums and think of bands, but there's certain bands, iconic bands, they just never change. Kiss, Kiss has always had that logo, merchandising wise. That logo is killer compared to everything else that's come after it. So, this was my second album, and again, remember, I'm just dipping my toe in the death metal pool around 01, and I got it right after. And I was kind of like, whoa, okay, I'm not sure I'm completely ready for this, but it's very much, to me, I think I start out here saying this is what did I say here? A true Finnish death doom folk classic, my favorite artwork, along with Karelian, but I think this is my favorite overall artwork that they ever had. And I'll dip into the tracks here real fast. Thousand Lakes, that cool little instrumental beginning. It's right away, it's an indication things are not going to be the same as Karelian. Right away, you're like, oh, whoa, keyboards and almost folky sounding, foresty sounding. I think when I hear that it's got a classical melody, but it's not really classical, and it has that evocative nature to already set you up that, okay, things are going to be different here. We get into Hiding, chuggy and riffy, mid-tempo, Arabic, Middle Eastern sounding guitar figures that Essa really loves to do throughout, back starting with this album and moving forward, this is a big thing for him. He's discovered, I don't know what he was listening to. Maybe he was listening to fucking, potentially he was listening to John McLaughlin and stuff like that, and probably players like, you know, oh God, are you fucking kidding me? Al Di Meola, guitar players I'm talking about that have that kind of flair to their playing, Al Di Meola in particular. But it definitely becomes very pronounced, and it's something he uses pretty much every album. There's a track or two that harkens back to Middle Eastern, Moroccan, Arabic sort of sounding scale stuff. Castaway, if I didn't know any better, this song, it starts with a cool, repetitive, proggy intro riff that's very Jethro Tull. Very Jethro Tull. We're going to talk more about that coming up on another album that's very Jethro Tull. Massively heavier and synth playing in harmony with the guitars. Lots of prog and heft. That's a favorite track, The Castaway, without question. One of my favorite tracks on the album. First Doom, it's good. It's doomy, of course. Slow burn compared to the first two tracks. Black Winter Day, clearly the single. Biggest melodic hook on the album, opening with that keyboard riff and the Moog lines played throughout. It sets it apart. Great song. The clean vocal, the vocal chant-like vocals work really, really well. Epic and uplifting. Uplifting. You're going to hear that more and more and more out of me. I'm going to keep saying that word to the point where you're like, quit fucking saying uplifting. But I'm telling you, that's what I start to hear in a lot of their songwriting going forward. And I think this is the album where they graduate, not to denigrate death metal songwriters, but they graduate from being, you know, good death metal songwriters to really progressive musicians. They've gone from being, because this isn't a knock on death metal guitar players or musicians but in that era, there was a lot of chugging and a lot of riffy stuff that was not super duper complex to play back then. And there was a lot of complex stuff like Nesmith and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, on the whole, that stuff was more about speed than it was about technicality. They become much more technical without becoming wanky, I guess is where I'm going with it. Okay. Yeah, Tim, that's what I'm talking about, man. Race with the Devil on Spanish Highway. Yep. Off of Elegant Gypsy. All right. Drown made another huge earworm, Crusher, in the Black Winter Day vein, but more crushing and heavier. Still, the keyboards add that icy, uplifting choral vibe to it. Single note melodies from Isa played, very memorable, and then it ends with the ocean roaring, which is kind of cool too. In the beginning, the juxtaposition of the cleans and harsh vocals at the intro give this one a really cool vibe, although it's still very much in keeping with the sort of structure of the songs on the albums. Forgotten Sunrise has some killer chugging on it midway through the song. That part is the best part of the track, in addition to Tommy's growling. Man, I just love Tommy's growling on this.
Oh, he's amazing on this.
Oh, God, it's so good. And they, not to denigrate where we go from here, but, man, it was so good. Again, true Finnish Two Fathers Cabin, cool melodies and arrangements. Although the clean vocals sound weird on this track for me. I don't know what it is, but every time I get to that track, I'm like, maybe it's just one of those things that's in my head. They just sound odd. Again, very evocative. For me, the album artwork sort of sets the stage for how this album sounds. Very evocative of the grandeur and wonder of the Scandinavian landscapes and mysterious yearning atmospheres. Possibly my only complaint is that the keyboards have a little bit of that early 90s, late 80s sound that you can kind of pigeonhole that, that's probably a Roland DX7 or a Juno. And, if you're not a musician, you're not going to know what that means. But they had a specific polyphonic sound that you could really pick out. And a couple of the tracks are a wee bit samey, but this is where they become really complete songwriters and musicians, where they move to that next level. And it's only going to get better, quite frankly. I know that's hard to say, but as far as musicians, it's going to get better, believe me. And this is really, really good. This is a 9.5 out of 10 out of me. I would love to go 10. I can't quite do it just because of some of the keyboard textures. and a little bit of a couple of the tracks that are a little in what's the word I'm looking for? Interchangeable, I guess is probably the word I'm looking for. But man, a fucking classic, one of the hallmark Finnish death doom albums. And I didn't actually mention Paradise Lost, but Peter nails it completely. The element that they bring in, though, that probably is not Paradise Losty is that Arabic, Moroccan, Middle Eastern vibe, which really, I'd have to really sit and think hard. I'm on the spot. I'm probably not going to come up with anything, but I'm not sure if any of the Scandinavian black metal or metal bands that era were really doing anything with those Arabic scales, the Phrygian and the major dominant scales. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. So I don't really hear Elton John. That's kind of interesting. I have to go back and listen, and I love Elton John, especially the 70s stuff. But all right, moving on real quick here to the Black Winter Days EP, which I think is on the CD version of reissue of Tales probably now. I don't actually have this one either, I don't think. It was recently reissued 21, 22, 23, somewhere on vinyl. I've seen a lot of them. It's kind of pricey for 6 songs for me on that. I'd rather just get the CD, but I couldn't find a CD copy of it anywhere. So, Jimmy, I think you're up, or wait, is it you, Peter? I'm sorry. We'll go with Peter.
But my CD copy only has 4 songs, so
yeah, the reissue has 2 more.
So it's got obviously Black Winter Day kicks off, and then it's got an instrumental. It's called the Instrumental Folk of the North. It's grand. This EP is good. I know the band wanted it released before Tales. It's got then Moon and Sun. So it's got Moon and Sun and then Moon and Sun Part 2, North Sun. I mean, it's a good track, very heavy.
I'm sorry, Peter. Let me just interrupt 1 second. There's one bonus track. They do a cover of Light My Fire from the Doors. Yeah.
Well, they were fans of the Doors. That's also hardly surprising. Those 2 tracks are quite heavy. There was Moon and Sun Part 2, heavy and melancholic. I don't really have too much to say on this one. I don't really return to it too often. Decent.
All right.
That's cool. You got the OG CD though. I'd love to have that. I mean, I'd pick this up on vinyl just to have the cover art. But my CD copie of Tales has the.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, does that have the Light My Fire on there too, or no?
Yeah, it's got the same 4 tracks that Peace has. So I mean, I think that's the full EP.
Does that have the cover then, or no cover?
I mean, if you open the booklet up, it has it inside the booklet. So
it looks like maybe the cover was 96 on a vinyl issue at that point. I don't know. I'm seeing because the first issue of it was 94 on Relapse, and 95 Nuclear Blast put it out with the same 4 tracks, and the colored vinyl is Relapse vinyl 10-inch, and 96 has that cover on it. Just a way to get people to buy something again.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like they would do stuff like this pretty often with EPs like this. Because I mean, obviously, I think these songs were just, and I kind of appreciate Amorphis for like not trying to overload the album, because they could have put these songs on the album and made it a little bit too long, and maybe they don't quite fit. They kind of are in the same vein, don't quite fit the context of the record, I think. And I think we'll see this on the next one too with the next EP, but. Because the little instrumental, that's basically just kind of a reworking of the intro track to the Karelian Isthmus, Karelia. And Moon and Sun Part 1 and 2. I really dig those songs just because they are kind of wedged between Tales and Karelian in that it's still kind of got that death doom kind of feel. Maybe a little heavier than what you get on Tales. Even I mean, there's heavy stuff on Tales, but it kind of feels like it's maybe like in between the two albums in a way. But not much else to say about that. I think it's just kind of the extras between the two albums, and the Doors song is kind of cool, but I don't know. I could have thought of maybe some better. I don't really give a shit about covers. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's cool. It's kind of cool to hear a Doors song with raw vocals, but they're just having fun, I'm sure.
Do you know what's interesting? I was just flicking through the booklet there. That song, those two songs, part 1 and 2, are written by Tommy, and on Tales, Tommy only wrote, from my recollection, 2 of the songs, and he only wrote 1 on Elegy. So it seems to be Essa and Opa and Casper even are the main songwriters now. So it's interesting you say it's left over. It's like a gap. It's like a transition track. Maybe Tommy's more death metal background is obviously lessening now, and he's
slipping away a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point. Hey, I wanted to mention something real quick, real fast, because this may be helpful for people in the future. A couple weeks before I got sick, I started hanging my guitars on the walls. You can kind of see, you can see one behind here. I got guitar hangers, right? And I shifted my whole room around to assimilate all I had 2 vinyl racks that I put up, right? And you can't really see them. They're kind of back this way over here. But anyway, long story short, my stereo system, I disconnected to my speakers, but somehow my RCAs from my stereo to my CD player got hung up on something. I didn't know this at the time. And when I went to rehook everything back up a couple days ago, I couldn't get my CD player to play. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Long story short, I finally looked down and I realized, oh, the RCAs aren't plugged in. The red and white RCA cables, right? Between your stereo and your CD player. And I have an Onkyo 6-disc changer that I really, really like, because I can just throw 6 discs in and lay down and zap through and do whatever I want with my remote. Wow. Here I come to find that the RCAs must have got hung up, the cord must have got hung up on something when I was shifting this heavy thing around with I've got tons of box sets, and everything's got to weigh 1,000 fucking pounds. I don't know how I moved it, but anyway, long story short, the freaking RCA pins, the male pins that go in the female thing, you know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying? And they broke off inside the fucking female parts, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So they were just sticking out a little bit. I got needle nose. I was going to yank them out, and they went further in. I'm like, oh my God, now what am I going to do? And I don't know if you guys have looked at CD players lately, multi-disc changers. They're fucking insanely priced. Like a good one, new, $400. I don't want to spend that much on a CD player because this one's just fine. I was thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to take this to a stereo place because I know if I open that chassis up, I'm going to fuck things up because that's what I do. I break things that are electronic. I should never be trusted with anything like that. Yesterday, I went on YouTube, just out of the blue. I'm like, I wonder if anyone else has run into this. And here, I look up the video. I look up a video on RCA's broken in the female ends. Do you know how I got them out? Do you know how I got them out?
Magnet or something?
Huh?
A magnet? No.
I took a pin. This video showed me how to do it. It's fucking ingenious. I am stupid. How I didn't think of this, I don't know. But I don't think most people would. If you take a fucking lighter and heat up a pin, and this is for anybody this might happen to if you have RCAs that break off. You heat up the end of a pin, the sharp end of, well, obviously the sharp end of the pin. You get it red hot. You stick it right in the center of the broken off piece, the male end. It melts around the metal in there, so soft metal. It melts around it, and then you let it sit in there and, for, I don't know, a minute or something like that, and they slide right out. I was the happiest fucking dude yesterday. I'm like, yes, I don't have to spend $100 to get some guy to go, yeah, I took them out in 5 minutes, but here's your bill, that kind of thing. So if you ever have that problem, anybody out there, there you go, man. So, all right. My quick take on Black Winter Day. 2 original tracks. The rest can be found elsewhere. Black Winter Day, we already know from Tales. Folk of the North piano interlude, except It's not piano. It's a synth emulating a piano, and it very much does not sound like a piano, and it kind of blows. So I'm just going to be honest with you. The song itself doesn't blow, but that sound is awful. Sounds like a Casio, man. Moon and Sun, pretty cool track, very synthy but heavy, still and mid-paced, catchy melodies. Dig how the track's tempo picks up at the end. Like that one a good bit. Moon and Sun Part 2 opens with a really cool classical sounding synth line, sequels into a very up-tempo track that is kind of proggy and almost oddly has a pop vibe to it. It's kind of bouncy, actually. But again, that keyboard sounds super dated, man, as a piano. Solid little EP, except not much meat on the bone. Except 2 previously unreleased tracks, means a 6 out of 10 for me. Is it essential? Nah, you can get it on the Tales reissue. So if you buy the CD, so yeah, not anything to go hunting for and spending a bunch of money on, in my opinion. So, all right, guys, we are up to Elegy, and Jimmy, I'll start with you since you're already up. Elegy comes out. I didn't mention real quick. The Black Winter Days comes out 10/1/94 on Relapse. Recorded September 93 in Sunlight with Skogsberg and Amorphis. So now we're up to Elegy, which comes out May 14th, 96 on Relapse. Recorded at Par and Sunlight Studios. And I believe this is still Skogsberg, but why am I thinking that's wrong?
He started it.
That's right.
The story goes that he was producing Entombed, and they found out, so they went, fuck this, and went back to Finland and finished it off themselves.
That's it. That's what it was. Yeah. Resher and Casper are replaced by Raka Kasari and Kim Rantalos, who only stayed for one album and an EP, but he's also Kim Rantalos is in Octopoloid with Opu now. And I don't know if anybody's checked out Octopoloid, but it's really, really good, by the way. I'm going to be probably having Opu back on for that. Also added clean vocalist Pasi Koskinen. So those are the major changes. So the original drummer leaves. Casper, the keyboardist who had been on since when? Just for Tales, right? Or was he and the EP?
It was just Tales and EP.
Yeah,
that's all.
So their leave. Raka Kasari comes on drums, and Kim Rantalos comes back, and he only stayed for this album and the EP, Mike Cantele. And then we had Pasi on, which I have to admit, I totally forgot about how he sounded. Completely forgot, because it's been a lot of years since I've jammed this group of albums. But yeah, we'll go on from there, and I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. So Jimmy, go ahead. Elegy.
Yeah, I just have the CD copy of it, and you can tell by looking at the picture that we are not in Tampa land anymore. Brothers. They look like Spine Shank or something like that. Yeah, it's like
audio slave.
Yeah. So this was one of those that was a grower for me as well. I don't think I initially liked it. It took me a little time to kind of warm up to Pasi's vocals, just because they're kind of different and not really like it's in a lot of ways. It seems like he was sort of the perfect pick for what they were going for, as we'll see going forward, because they are moving further away. Obviously, from the death metal, there's pretty much none of it on here. And but at the same time, I do feel like the record is it does feel like a natural progression from Tales, because I feel like there are still some elements from there. There's still sort of some of the mystical and the folky kind of elements, and there's some death growls in there. But for the most part, a large part of the sound is starting to revolve around the new vocalist. But I think for me, when I first heard it around the time when I had come back to Amorphis years later, having missed this when it came out, 1996, I would have graduated high school. I wasn't listening to too much of this kind of stuff then. In fact, I was probably listening to Spine Shank then, because I was not good at music in those days.
So you heard it. You heard it here, folks. You just said it.
Yeah. So So yeah, because that was it was a weird time for metal. 90. I remember when I graduated high school, it was like I kind of fell out because a lot of stuff, that's around when grunge was like really big, and there was still metal coming out, and not that this is even really metal anyway. Maybe this was kind of a sign of the times. Now that I think of it, because like death metal kind of sort of just not that it died out, but it just took a backseat really big time for 2 or 3 years, and so many years later, coming back to it and kind of rediscovering all of the Amorphis stuff, I feel like this record, as I listened to it, I liked it even more and more every song that went by. Like I feel like it just gets better and better throughout the whole record. And we're even at a point where they really nail down, the songwriting in terms of like they just know how to write catchy, just memorable stuff, and that's kind of what you look for. Really going forward for the rest of what they do is like it's stuff that's going to get stuck in your head. And they definitely focused a little bit more on the sort of Middle Eastern vibe, starting off with Better Unborn. And yeah, man, I mean, like the vocalists took me a little time to get used to, but I mean, after I sat with him for a while, I really started to kind of feel and kind of understand why they chose him for this, and why they're starting to kind of put the death metal vocals even further in the background. It's like they kind of kept him there in some heavy parts just to like ease the transition from, Karelian to Tales to this. It's a big jump, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on, Marty? Yeah, man, I mean, like it's still, I feel like even when I listen to it now, it's like it really grew on me over time, I feel like. And even today when I listen to it, I still feel the same way when I listen, when I get through the whole record. It's just like every song, I feel like I like even more than the last one. Bit of experimentation, a bit of a lot of dynamics here. It's kind of a couple of ballady type songs, Orphan and title track Elegy, a couple of instrumentals, very musical. Lots going on, in terms of the guitars and how they've really honed in their melodic sense on this album.
Yeah, huge leveling up on songwriting on this album. I mean, huge.
Yeah. I mean, not that there were no slogs on that before, but you can tell. But two albums in, I mean,
they were very good death metal, doom metal songwriters, but they took all those influences that they were being. Again, now we're talking they're in their mid-20s, right? Their mid to late 20s probably. And they're taking all those other esoteric sort of things that they're bringing in. Jazz even at some point starts to really make a presence known on the next album. And yeah, it's a massive leveling up. And Marty, I'm sure, was not alone in his thoughts, and probably you kind of echoed that sentiment. That for me, because I started with Tuonela, the album after this, and went back, the transition wasn't jarring at all, and it was kind of like, okay, wow. I had forgotten about this album. We'll get to that in a minute. I'd totally forgotten about how kind of amazing it really is, to be completely honest with you. So, Peter, what you got on Elegy?
Real quick, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, just pretty much every song is great, but Mike Hensley, they have a knack for choosing like the catchiest songs as the singles, and man, it's just not the catchy, just awesome melodic song. I even like the acoustic version, but also the other favorites are On Rich and Poor. That song is killer. Love that song. And Cares is great too. Really everything on here, but going back, man, this one really grew hard on me, and it's definitely one of my favorite records by him.
Wow. All right, Peter, you ready?
Yeah. I always associate this album with sunshine and the summer, because I got this probably about a month after it was released. After I'd finished my exam, high school exams, I was ready to go to university. And I always remember when I got it home, put it in the hi-fi, press play. It was such a sunny day, and then it was just like blown away. And I was a bit, like Marty says, he was pissed. I suppose, I was a wee bit sort of disappointed that we didn't have Tales Part 2. But I'd heard Gorefest do Soul Survivor and was pissed at that. and I'd heard Cancer do Black Faith, and I was pissed at that. And that was two death metal bands trying to go 70s rock. But I think Amorphis nailed it. Compared to those two,
100%.
they absolutely nailed it. And this is such a complex album, and
Yep.
I think I've come to appreciate more and more as time has gone by. I think even just today, when I was supposed to be listening to all the albums, I must have listened to this about 3 or 4 times.
Me too.
Just had to go
Almost
back to it.
impossible. It's almost impossible not to. It's that good.
Yeah. It's so uplifting. Now the folk melodies seem to be the basis for the songwriting rather than the metal or the death metal. There's very the distorted guitars aren't as prominent. It's very upbeat as well. Again, just classic 70s prog, psychedelia, folk music, all superbly produced, written, executed. The Paradise Lost sort of isms that I mentioned previously, they're gone now.
They're gone.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally gone. Again, I mentioned before that Tommy only has the one songwriting credit in this, which is that song "Curse," which is quite a unique, interesting song. You were saying about notes. I wrote loads of notes. I'm not going to read through them all, but the
Yeah, you
pages.
can, whatever. If you can. I'm trying to move fast through my stuff.
Yeah.
I can only move fast. I'm thinking about you. Jimmy and I probably can go longer, but I'm thinking about you trying to get to bed, so I'm trying to keep this in that 3-hour range. We're probably not going to make it, probably 3.5, but we'll try to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I put a tick beside all the songs I think are stand out, and it's nearly every song here is a tick. So
Yeah, exactly. That's almost an impossible task to say the bangers and mega bangers on this, because they're kind of all mega bangers, I think. Really,
absolutely. Better Unborn, that sitar Arabic sort of intro sets the scene. There's wah-wah guitars are coming in now. It just confirms this is going to be different. No More Deaf Doom. The 70s hard rock comes through. Pazzi's vocals, I suppose it's like an acquired taste, very nasally, but I do appreciate them now. Against Widows, bouncy, almost Oompa-esque riff is quite cool in that there song. It just bursts into life when Tommy's growls kick in and then the guitar melodies. And I mean, another wah-wah guitar solo comes up. The Orphan, like you said, is kind of the trippy, sort of psychedelic, sort of ballady one. Quite soothing in a way, and with Pazzi's sort of more chilled vocals. On Rich and Poor, I think that's where you get sort of Iron Maiden kind of harmonies coming in that there song. Really picks up the pace. I think there's a harmony I put down here at just over the 2-minute mark is probably some of the best on the album. And again, it's that their songwriting compositional style, like I said, where the songs just build up to a crescendo. That seems to be sort of like their formula then going forward. My Cartel, lovely folky ballad. Curse, a real mix of styles, and from reading about it, some of the interviews they were talking about, this kind of riff was influenced by a Finnish band called Waltari, and I wasn't too familiar with them, but I went back and checked out some stuff on YouTube, and it's a band that sounds like be right up my street. I'm going to go back and explore a bit more. It's all different mesh of genres just thrown in, and it all seems to kind of work. It has a really sort of another sort of oompa section and a really dancey beat. Song of the Troubled One is got a bit of a funky guitar riff going on in that one. Weeper off On the Shore is kind of a bit of a reprieve from the previous high energy songs, but more proggy keyboards, nice acoustic folky ballad, and Elegy is just one hell of an epic track. One of the highlights in the album for me. there's so much melancholy and sorrow. You have beauty in the guitar solos. The Hammond organ is really cool. Put down the question: should this have been the end of the album? Because then they bring in that their instrumental relief. It's a wee bit dancey, and then obviously My Cartel, the reprise, which is just a mellower version of the previous song. What made me go out and get this album so quickly was that Terrorizer actually scored this full marks at the time.
You did?
Terrorizer Mags.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would they give it 10 out of 10?
Well, they marked it 5 out of 5 back then,
5 out of
5
5.
stars, whatever.
Let me just interject for 1 second. Their 5 out of 5 is not equivalent to Jimmy's 10 out of 10. I'm just saying. I mean, it's just the reality. Okay.
Hey, that's a lower threshold to work with there. You know,
Well,
get the fuck out of here, 5 out of 5.
Oh,
Back
get
then,
the
they
fuck
didn't give
out of here
too
with
many
your 5 out of 5s.
I think they actually then switched to like scoring albums out of 100, and then they switched back to like 10. So,
Right.
but yeah, the point still stands. I suppose they didn't give that too many albums a full score, and that was one of the few ones. And yeah, back then the print magazines were my bible. You know, like you said, no internet, so you couldn't really hear the songs unless you got a compilation CD or something, or the odd song on a metal show on the radio. But yeah, wasn't disappointed. So I wouldn't. This is where I know we're not scoring any of them. I'm gonna give Tales 9.9. I don't know.
I'm right there with you, bro. Right there with you.
I don't give too many 10 out of 10 or 10 out of 10s, but yes, somewhere in that ballpark. I'll not torture myself and actually score it. So,
All right. So for me, again, Tuonela being my first, I went back and grabbed this maybe 3rd or 4th album, 5th album, I can't remember. And man, I loved it right away. Of all 3 of us, I think it's no secret that I'm probably the prog nerd, right? I mean, I just love complex. But the thing, when you say complex songwriting, it's complex songwriting, but it's not fucking Dream Theater. There's not wank all over the place on these songs. There's not, 10-minute long, 6-minute instrumental stuff. They're not those guys. They're not those writers. They're just really, 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 they've morphed into really good songwriters. And also, remember, this comes out in 96, was it, or 97?
yeah, 96.
96. We're still pre-digital here. We're at ADAT, but we're not at multi-tracks where you can just layer things forever, right? Maybe 72 tracks at this point, 48 tracks probably. I don't know what the studios that they use were, but we're not in the age of digital where you can just layer and layer and layer and have hundreds of tracks. You really had to think about what was going to happen here. You couldn't just throw everything in the kitchen. You couldn't Devin Townsend to death. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Devin, but he does that a lot. This album is mind-blowing to me. It is fucking amazing. I hadn't revisited in a long time. And I completely forgot about Passy. Like, I was like, whoa. For a minute, I had to recalibrate and go, whoa, I just don't remember his voice like this. And it was bugging me. All 4 albums. Is it 4 that he sang on? 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.
4. Yeah.
It just kept going, who's this guy remind me of, God damn it? And I think somewhere lower, the next albums, I have it. But the guy that I came up close to, kinda, and you nailed it with nasal. There's a nasal tone, but it's a cool nasal tone, right? And the guy I came up with initially was, and I don't know if you guys know this band at all, but it was a band called I Mother Earth. And they were a Canadian band, 4-piece, very progressive, but kind of bluesy, but kind of rushy, but kind of, they kind of Hendrixy, a lot of the guitar player, Tanner Jaga, I think his name, or Jaga Tanner. I can't. It was one of those two. I may have them backwards. Their vocalist was named Edwin. That was all his name was, Edwin. And their first album, if you remember, it's got interestingly enough, it's got a Dalmatian on the front with a gas mask on it. Did you ever see that, you guys? All right.
I don't think so.
I forget the fucking name of the track that they had that was kind of a minor hit on MTV Headbangers. But that guy, Edwin, he sang on Victor, the Alex Lifeson solo album. He sings on that album too. He's got that sort of tone, although Edwin could kind of go higher than Passy, and Passy could do the death growls a little bit too. But man, that was just I Mother Earth. But there's another guy I'm thinking of, and I think I have it down here. My mind's too focused on moving linearly, so I can't remember who it is. But he does have a very distinctive sound, right? And they were clearly hunting for a more progressive and, dare I say, slightly more commercial direction here. As I said, what the hell? Hang on. God damn it. What's the first track here called?
Better Unborn.
Better Unborn. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, I see what I did. All right, I have two things that are overlapping here. Sorry, sometimes my fucking notes get kind of. I do this stuff while I'm listening, and then I start to fall asleep sometimes on occasion. And I think I was, it was like 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. here when I fucked that up. All right, hold on. Sorry. Yeah. Better Unborn, killer opener, up tempo, carries the melodies well. The singer Passy carries the melodies well. There's a small hint of death vocals, but Passy sounds like a great addition. And we hear all the Arabic and Middle Eastern scales that are brought in big time on this. Against Windows, heavy death growls accentuated by Passy's clean. This one is a super earworm. The Orphan, that's the ballad, moody, driven by the synth melodies, almost psychedelic guitars, really killer track. Not really heavy except the breakdown section, which I love, which kind of moves into a slow burn where the guitar solo harmonies really are magical and make the song amazing. The Orphan is absolutely a fucking stellar track. And like Jimmy said, it just keeps kind of getting better, which is crazy. Most albums start with their first 3 or 4 best tracks and then they peter off. That's not this album. On Rich and Poor, wow, up-tempo riff fest, very orchestrated. That's another thing they add, the orchestrated elements to the I don't know if it was real orchestras or synth orchestras, but I think it was real. Amazing. Lots of guitar harmony interplay. Killer track, sort of almost blasts more like gallops on this one. Killer. My Cancele leads off with a death growl, mid-tempo, great melodies, still angling for more of a heavy prog arena rock sound. Just awesome. Cares. Super cool delayed guitar intro. This is the album that Essa discovers digital delay and how to really harness the digital delay, because he does it on other little bits here and there on the previous death metal stuff. But on the prog stuff, man, he is absolutely worshiping at the altar of David Gilmour. 1,000,000%. It's David Gilmour, and a little more David Gilmour. I'm okay with that. Gilmour's one of the best guitar players to ever do it. But he starts to really harness the delay stuff. And this one has great death growl vocals on the intro. There's a weird section sort of in the synths sound a little bit like Jean-Michel Jarre, Oxygen. There's a little bit of an Oxygen sort of quality to the synths in there. A lot of Psych and Hendrixy sort of chugs in, like Hendrixy vibes to this one. Monster fucking track, man. Song of the Troubled One, cool bass solo, really badass guitar melodies, death vocals, lots of cool bouncy synths. Love the guitar and synth runs. Man, fuck, man. Like, come on. Like, does it get any better? Yeah, it actually does. Weeper on the Shores, acoustic intro, synth lead lines, clean vocals, kind of an up-tempo ballad, but rocky as fuck. Lots of killer interplay between guitars and keyboards. Stellar proggy track. Man, Elegy. Fucking Christ, that song is killer. The longest track. Now, we're talking now almost a 7+ minute track, I believe, right?
Yeah.
and it's the monster prog track. It's just fucking killer, man. It's a killer track. I do get why some of the naysayers say Passy sounds like a grunge singer on this album. I do get it a little bit, but I came up in the grunge era, man. When I was in my late 20s, early 30s, that was my fucking jam. Lane and Chris Cornell were two of the greatest singers ever. I don't care what anybody says. It's just the reality.
I think he just sounds more like kind of just like a rock singer. I kind of get the grunge, but I don't get it like heavily. I mean, he just sounds like a kind of a classical, more of a rock guy. And
there are some death growls on this one, and there's lots of bombastic strings on it. It is just a monster fucking track, man. Monster track. And then at the end, relief instrumental, really up tempo intro kind of nearing thrash, but more like folk thrash, if there is such a thing. Maybe I just invented a genre there. I doubt it. Very maideny, has a maideny vibe to it. And then My Cantilay, the acoustic track, cool folky track, lots of organ. Love the 70s prog thing. Of course I would, because I love that shit. Even the dreaded accordion sounds fucking awesome on it. Let's be honest. Even the accordion sounds cool. The important thing to note about this album is the band have fairly radically changed the original sound of the band. It's more progressive, psychedelic, even radio-friendly at times, but it's not pop. Bringing Passy in allowed them to pretty much move away from the death metal tag. There are still some there are killer tracks on here, and Passy kind of sounds like Edwin from My Mother Earth, I said. Lots of synth on this album, but it's good synth. It's a super important element of the album are the synths and the orchestrations. Let's see here. I think it's a very important thing to note on this album. Each track on this album has its own individual identity. There is not one track that sounds like another track. It really is that dynamic.
Absolutely.
It's that dynamic. And it's multidimensional. And by that, that's the thing I was referring to as far as the songwriting chops have leveled way up. It's multidimensional. It's just not power chords and a solo. It's not just a synth chordal thing. There's all kind of shit going on in these songs. And they really mix in the Scandinavian Finnish folk sort of vibe to it. Works like a charm. 9.75 out of 10. I almost wanted to give it a 10, but yeah, look, it's a 10 out of 10. It's a fucking amazing album, man. It's absolutely fucking amazing.
10 out of 10 for you, huh?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Any quick thoughts there?
Just like you're talking about the synths and stuff. Kim was a massive Deep Purple fan.
Organ.
Yep.
Hammond B3, man. Hammond B3. And you hear it all over this album, man. I love it.
And he was older than the rest of them.
That's right.
So he brought that more, that 70s style through.
That's right. And that's why if you listen to Octopoloid, man, you hear a lot of that because it's through, he brings that 70s Deep Purple Hammond, John Lord Hammond B3 thing, man. And I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. Hammond B3 is a fucking badass instrument, man. Badass, especially when you do it like John Lord, when you're beating the fuck out of your instrument and turning it upside down. Keith Emerson, same thing.
Oh yeah, sticking knives in it.
Yeah, sticking knives. That was Emerson. Yeah, yeah. So My Cantilay EP, Peter, why don't you take that one up?
Hey, real quick, it should be stated that, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's going to burn people's pockets. Relapse.com has color variants of all the Relapse Amorphis records. All of them are still available. Yeah, they've got Karelian through Universum. It looks like all color vinyl. Two different variants.
Fuck you, Jimmy. You're out of here. See ya.
Just so you know, if you're looking for it.
I know. I have everything on CD. I went for the Karelian because I love that artwork, and I have Tales. I don't think I need this stuff on vinyl, to be honest, but I get it. It's out there. So
yeah.
My Cantilay EP comes out 5/27/97. Relapse MD Studios in Helsinki. Angel Share Studios also. I think it's self-produced. Was recorded in 197. This is the first album with Santori. And by the way, I should note that I copied Santori and I copied all the guys in the band with this, like that we were doing this, and Oppu and Santori, liked it. It doesn't mean anything, but I doubt they're watching. But it's kind of cool. I know for a fact the Over deep dive was watched by Garm. That I know. All the guys.
Cool.
Over. So you never know. They may actually, and obviously Agalok was watched. So it's kind of cool when the band guys check that shit out and dig into it, and who knows if I'll hear from them. I don't know. I like I said, I may be interviewing one or two of the guys before they go on their tour at some point in time. So we'll see where that's at. But yeah. So go ahead. It's for. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. It's also the last with Oppu. Oppu leaves until 2016, I believe.
Is Oppu not on Tuonela?
He's not.
Was he not?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait.
It was 99, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. Hold on. God damn it. Shit, I didn't make the notes on here. Why didn't I? I'll look. Go ahead. Why don't you talk about my Cartel? I'll look it up here.
Yeah. Unlike Brave Winter Day, I think this is actually quite a cool EP.
Great EP.
Yeah, there's no trace at all of any death metal now, no growls. It's pretty even metal, I suppose. The Brother Slayer's pretty cool song. They're really starting to embrace the 70s prog psychedelic sort of side of things. And I'm not sure what the right description is, but it's a thing on the key, the synth, which is almost like an
Peter,
acid
you were right.
techno.
You were right. Only leaves after Tuonela. My bad. I don't know why. You know what? I probably mixed up my notes and switched something up and moved something, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, there's almost like an acid sort of techno part on the way that it goes in that high pitched thing on the keyboard. It's in the background. But yeah, lots of Hammonds here, barely any guitars. The Lost Son, then the Brother Slayer Part 2, quite chilled, sort of percussive piece, a nice sublime sort of guitar solo going through it, and it almost reminds me, and I came into my head, the Allman Brothers in this one, so it was almost like a bluesy sort of jamming feel to it.
Oh, interesting. I love the Almonds. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, big fan of Almonds too. I suppose the first time around I wouldn't have, because I think in the Almonds still about maybe 15 years ago. So Levitation then is the Hawkwind cover. I mean, and I know some Hawkwind, yeah.
I love that song. I love Levitation, the album, but it's all right. It's just kind of basic, yeah.
And then the next one is another cover, actually, by that Finnish band Kingston Wall, which
huge
I really
influence. Huge influence on them. Huge.
Because I was reading a wee bit about them, and it's the main guys. He went to India and he was taking a lot of psychedelic drugs and stuff like that there, hallucinogenic drugs and stuff. And he started following some Finnish guy and some weird sort of belief system, and I think he then realized that it was a bit silly and regretted it and sort of fell into depression and ended up killing himself.
Ooh, okay, I didn't know that.
Back in 95 or something. I think he jumped from a church. I was reading about it. But they have 3 albums out, and anything I've heard by him is really, really cool. And you can see how much of an influence they were on them. Like throwing in together all the different folk stuff and all the different genres, mixing them all together, all the prog stuff. So yeah, pretty cool cover. Plenty going on, very proggy. And again, put down something else that a band will get into later on, Transatlantic. And this kind of reminds me of what they would go on to do in their albums later on. Though I did say there was no sort of death metal, Pazzi does have a slight growl in this song, which is quite rare now at this stage now for them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my notes on it. Pretty. Oh, there it is. There, I didn't show it, but that's the.
There it is. Yeah.
Which has an interesting symbol there.
Huh.
Oh wow! Look
Anti,
at that.
anti, with the thing through it. So I don't know if that was Relapse Nuclear Blast wanted it on or the band did, but it's got
And anti-Nazi
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, fascist
interesting.
stuff probably.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have to grab this one. It's another one I don't own that I need to grab. This one's should be said. This is definitely one you want to pick up. I think.
yeah.
Is it essential? Probably not, but I think it's very, very good. So I would say it's borderline essential if you are a fan. Yeah, you'll want it. Yeah. Jimmy, you got on this.
Yeah,
one.
I like this one a lot too. I just dig the Brother Slayer 2-track, even though it kind of feels like it's just kind of one big track. But I just like how they just really kind of went for the psychedelic kind of spacey rock kind of elements in those, really just further hinting on where they're going at this point. And I really like the acoustic version of Mike Hensley. It's it's a very melodic song, so it works really well as an acoustic track. But the cover the cover songs are cool as well, because you could just tell they draw a lot of influence from those two bands. They're kind of just an example of what's the well that they're drawing from. But I don't have a physical copy of this. I wish it was, because if you look at Relapse, they have pretty much everything. They don't have any of the EPs. But you got to go check out Jeff on the Relapse site. There's an all over Karelian Isthmus shirt. That's fucking badass.
Is it really? I'm not a fan of all over shirts.
I'm not either, but this one is cool as fuck.
All right, I'll look it up
because it has all the colors, and I don't know. It has the artwork kind of blown up. It's just really
generally they kind of they strike me as like fucking yacht rock pineapple shirts. You know what I mean? Like these are kind of goofy as fuck. But like, because I've even looked at Rush ones, and I'm like, not for me.
Yeah, this one kind of looks like it's almost like a Hawaiian style shirt if you didn't look at it. But it's I don't know. It's still pretty badass. Even if
I definitely got to get a Karelian or a Tails shirt though, for sure.
They've got Tails shirts and Black Winter Day shirts.
Oh, good, good.
They got Karelian shirts too. Actually, yeah, they
awesome.
got. Surprised that they have
what are
all
they
this
charging
stuff.
for shirts these days now?
Shit.
30?
$20.
Oh, 20?
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll get you for $12 for shipping.
For shipping, yeah. So you're going to pay $35 no matter what.
Yeah, probably going to be about 30, 32, somewhere in that range.
But I'm surprised they've got all this vinyl stocked still, like multiple variants of all the the Relapse releases.
I'll have to look at that stuff, see whether I. But
really it's good, man. I mean, like I think the EPs so far are all kind of worth having. I'd like to have a copy of it if it was possible. But because I think, for me, this EP, it's all about the Brother Slayer combo. It's just, kind of didn't really, just like the songs on the Black Winter Day, didn't quite make the cut, but still worthy of putting out.
Yeah, real quick on this. Not a lot of thoughts here. Brother Slayer, very 70s organ progginess, solid track. I'm not as in love with it as both you guys. I like it. My Cantaloupe is a repeat from the Elegy. This is the first album. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's where I fucked up. That was. Wait a minute. Is Santori on this album or not? What the hell is with my notes here?
But it was from the sessions from '96. So let me see.
I'm looking right now. I don't know why.
He's not listed on.
No, Kim is still keyboards.
No, it was Kim. So I goofed this up. That line is actually supposed to be underneath Tuonela. It's Last Day, Sun, or Last Sun. Very Floydian. Opening cool synths, delayed Gilmore-esque psych guitars, has a bit of a tribal feel on the percussive side of things. Pretty wicked track. I'd never heard this EP, so I'd never heard that song. Levitation, I'm a big Hawkwind fan. Love everything from 80 back, except for the first album, which kind of blows. But everything from Do Re Mi on up to Levitation. Levitation, one of my favorite songs. Fucking killer track. They do a nice kind of basic version of it. They're not adding anything truly epic to it. And I hear you call Epic Grand Prog Monster. I love that song.
Yeah.
And I Hear You Call. That is a killer freaking track that would have easily been on Elegy and been, you know, a beneficial thing for it. So great little EP. Is it essential? Probably not. But if you're a fan and a completist, you're gonna want it. I give this a 9 out of 10. Really, really killer. So, all right, now we're up to Tuonela, and Peter, I'll let you go. I don't know if I'm fucking up here or not, but Tuonela. Now, I will add real quick here. I've said it before. This is the first album I bought right in around 0001. I'm not sure where. Comes out. Motherfucker. Hold on.
March 99.
March. Thank you. I hit the hashtag sign. March of 2999 on Nuclear Blast. Was recorded at Thin Box Studios, and they've now got a producer, Simon Efame. Santori Kali is a studio musician on this. He's not an actual member until the following album, but huge addition here. You can just tell right away. And also we've got as a studio musician, God, I don't know how, Sakai Kuko on horns. I think that's his name. Sorry, sir. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
So this is where this is my break with Amorphis kicked in. I didn't pick this up until mid 2000s. Around the same, I got this around the same time as Universum, so I got those two. For me, this is going back and listening to this. This was them completing their transformation. They're now melodic, folky, prog rock band. I think this album Pazzi comes to the fore here.
Agree.
Really makes a mark. Like I said, you talked about horns. But now I got saxophone and flute. Which,
as Jimmy likes to call it, I don't like wham saxophone in my Amorphis.
I don't mind saxophone.
I'm sorry, man. I had to dime you out.
It's okay. It was coming anyway. So.
Yeah, it comes, well, the way's a good opener. And because I didn't pick this up the wee bit later, I'd actually heard, it reminds me of some of Omnium Gathering, some of the stuff they would, well, I was in them probably their early albums. I haven't really followed them too much these days, but that's what that reminded me of. Again, really good song, and again another rare Pazzi growl is cracked out in that one. Morning Star, great keyboard section in that there, really lifts the song up. Again, I put down Pazzi as the star of the show once again in this track. Nightfall, yeah, I've got saxophone on Amorphis, question mark and exclamation mark. But it works. The folky melodies that they're famous for are present here, as is the 70s sort of wah-wah guitar that we heard a wee bit on Elegy. Tuonela, great track. Lots of passionate melancholy in the guitar melodies and mournful lyrics. Piano section accompanied by the saxophone is very relaxing. Greed is probably the closest they harken back to their older stuff. Very heavy track. Pretty cool sitar sort of opening, and Pazzi growls in this one, which are actually quite good.
Yeah, they're very good.
I know he went on this. He sings in a black metal band and all now. I know he went on to do that there, but definitely probably the heaviest track on the album, and probably one of the best tracks in the album. Divinity, I think I actually remember seeing a video for that song. Good, decent rocker, got a really cool chorus. Shining has a really broody bass line, nice heavy guitar riff, really good solo Hammond keyboards. Are a wee bit understated for me in that track. Weathered, mystical, psychedelic number with an almost eerie keyboard part in the background. The guitar riff sounds sort of Indian or maybe Far Eastern.
It is. Yep.
underpinned by a really cool driving bass line. Another favorite of mine from the album. Rusty Moon, the flute bit is pretty cool. And you mentioned this band earlier, and I've down now they're going for a bit of a Jethro Tull vibe here.
Oh,
Uh,
yep.
Summer's End, great bass line, MIDI rocker. Me touch of gothic almost reminds me of what Anathema were trying to do around this time. Yeah, so it's overall pretty cohesive album. Again, I went back and dug out some old issues of Terrorizer, and S was saying that they wanted to strip back the songs on this album compared to what they were doing on Elegy. So they weren't trying to pack in loads of different melodies in each song.
Mm-hmm. And they do.
Yeah. Then they progressed to a point, that they were quite open about doing, wanting to take this sort of direction. They've refined the psychedelic proggy folk rock of Elegy. I did say here that the cohesiveness of the album maybe hurts it slightly, as there's no real standout track for me. Nothing like that hits you like the wow factor that Elegy did, or maybe some of the tracks back on.
That's a fair
Tales.
assessment, I guess. I have one or two tracks that kind of blow my mind. Yeah. Overall.
But yeah, I think again, this is go back to what I said earlier. It's around the early 2000s, turn of the century. I'm starting to sort of go back and get into this older classic rock, 70s rock, prog, all the rest of it, and psychedelic rock, and then starting to appreciate the album. Now I've been through that experience and understand what they're trying to do here. Probably at the time I wasn't as appreciative of it. There you go.
Right.
I don't have a score for this one. I would say maybe 8.5 out of 10.
I'm going to be a little higher. Not shocking. Jimmy, what you got?
Yeah. I kind of touched upon earlier. I hadn't really thought about this until I just, started talking about Elegy and looking at the year it came out. Was that like these records from Elegy through through the rest of the Passy era really came at an interesting time, and actually kind of a perfect time for these records because again, like those late 90s, it was kind of a weird time for just metal in general. I don't know that really, I don't think that had anything to do with their decision making on their trajectory, because I do feel that this is a natural progression from Elegy. I mean, everything so far has slowly just glided into the next record and the sound. And Pete talking about how, they were saying they wanted to strip it down a little bit. Makes total sense in a way, just, in order to achieve a kind of more, okay, we've moved completely away from not only just like, the death metal is kind of long gone, but it's more like, even though there's still like, I think there's probably some influence from the Calavela in here and whatnot. But the music is moving further away from, the folkish aspect of the band, the sort of like the fantastical elements of earlier records, the concept, even if maybe there might be, I'm sure there is a good bit of that in the lyrics here, but done in a way that kind of fits this sound, right? And Passy is the perfect vocalist to sort of steer the vehicle for going towards, a specific results in prog, or not even really just so much prog, but like stripped down rock in a way, melodic prog rock kind of thing, with maybe a bit of a 70s kind of vibe to it. A little bit more of the Floydian stuff is coming in, and interesting. The producer, I think this was kind of new for them as well, Simon Efemi, who is an interesting guy. If you go look him up, he's done a lot of kind of oddball things in terms of like he wasn't just like a death metal guy or a punk rock guy or whatever it was. He kind of did a lot of different stuff, like from Napalm Death to Amorphis, and there was some other like kind of just grunge rock stuff or whatever that he had done. But he's kind of just done all these weird things. I'm not really sure where he got his name from, but in terms of what records he had done and why they had decided to go with him on this. But I'm sure there was something in his past there. But yeah, so I mean, but it is kind of, I like to think of it as like, wow, that's kind of perfect. Like they were like, I don't know if they really planned it that way, but it just fits really well because we're definitely in that period where a lot of bands are experimenting. A lot of bands are trying, even death metal bands are trying to go, all the bands that went for the more death rock kind of thing. And,
You know what, Jimmy, just real quick.
Yeah.
Just real quick. I'm looking at his,
he did Draconian Times. I forgot about that.
man, he did Draconian and Icon and Shades
Icon.
of God. That has to be why they
So that's
went
it.
that direction.
That's it right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Has
what
to
they
be
went.
why.
I didn't think about Draconian Times, but that makes
But
total
he
sense.
has done some weird shit, man, like Ned's Atomic Dustbin, which is weird.
Glass. That's other stuff.
Excuse me, Wolfsbane was another one that sort of the Wild Hearts. Yeah, some really out there stuff,
Yeah. Well, there you go. That makes sense, right?
Skid
Yeah.
Row. He did fucking Skid Row. What?
Oh, that's right. He did Skid Row stuff. Yeah.
Like a later album. That's trippy.
Yeah.
How about
And
that?
then he did Napalm Death.
Yeah,
Did like 2 or
Crowbar.
3 Napalm Death records.
Crowbar. Wow, it's trippy.
Crowbar,
Man.
yeah.
You've done some.
Yeah, he
weird
kind of did all kinds of all over the place. Like he wasn't like some just straight metal producer or something. Like
No.
that, you know what I mean? They're like, and that makes sense for like why they and the sound, the record sounds great. I like the sound, the lush sound of it, the production. It just it fits well with the music, and I think this one I honestly, preparing for this deep dive, I think this and the next 2 records are probably the ones I listened to the most because I was just so unfamiliar with them. Like I had this CD for a while and I listened to it a couple times, but it just I never really felt like I need the sound wasn't really, I don't want to say it wasn't for me. It just like
didn't grab you.
No. And like, I never really thought if I spent the time that it would grab me, and I was pretty wrong about that actually.
Yeah.
I like these deep dives because like it forces you to really sit down with something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as a result of really spending a lot of time with this album, I really like it a lot. I would say it's not. There's definitely standouts here. Where some of the record kind of just. Yeah, Amorphis is really great, and we're going to see this really often with further records. Is that it's just the amount of albums that these guys have and the amount of music they write. There's no way every song is going to be as, like Elegy, for example. Every single song is catchy and you remember it. You know what I mean? Like it's like, whereas that's what you look for in the album, and then there's going to be songs that just kind of bleed into each other, and it's just going to happen. It's just natural, and I feel like some of this happens in this record, but and they sort of like retain like little hints of themselves. Like for example, in the intro of The Way, with that little sort of galloping like acoustic intro kind of thing, like it's total Amorphis, and I don't know. I think Passy is really kind of like grown on me at this point as a vocalist. I think he's really kind of he's very much a specific style and really kind of perfect for what they were doing here. Now, what happens later, we'll talk about.
Yeah.
He
gave them a lot of flexibility, is the way I.
And I think he was really good on this. And The Way, I love the title track, and then the Greed track is really good. It's a heavy, the heaviest song on here. I love his vocals on that. I think he really shredded it. Divinity is my favorite song on the record. I just love that song. It's just, I don't know, it's good melancholic rock. And then Rusty Moon and Summer's End, the closer, is great.
Damn.
The saxophone doesn't I guess it's not too overdone on here. It gets a little more aggravated. We'll get into on the next record.
We're almost there.
It's not so much that I think it's not good, and it does work. It's just like for me specifically, I just don't like the sound of a soprano sax. It just grates on me. But that said, man, I feel like this is kind of an unheralded gem in the trajectory of Amorphis because they become such a different band. I mean, they've always. We'll get into it because the second half is interesting how things become a lot more samey. But I think what I love the most about this is where it exists in, in the path. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And like in the time that it came out, it's really really fun to think about. But I really enjoy this one. It's very, very good.
Well, you're probably not going to be shocked that this is a very high-ranking album. We're not going to rank them tonight. We'll rank them at the end of when we wrap things up, so we have a complete picture. But again, my first album in, and the weird part about it is that, I have a pretty weird thing. My friends always say this to me. My good friends that have known me even outside of you guys much longer, guys like Serge and guys like Dave and dudes that have known me 25 years. They're like, how the fuck do you remember all these details of situations that are relative to an album? Like, okay, that album came out. I remember going and seeing them here. I remember what I ate at that place. I remember where, that all that weird stuff. I just have this weird savant. I can't tell you what I had for lunch today, but I you know what I mean? I remember
association with things.
What's that?
Like if it's, you can associate an event with
it's fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
I can just remember good example. Went to see Boston on the Third Stage tour in 1987, I think. 86, I forget what it was. Now I'm already blowing myself up here. 86. I think it was 86 because I think I had just turned 20 or no, it might have been 87 because I was 21 because I was legal to drink. And I remembered that in the parking lot, some crack whore came up to us and was asking us for money to go get crack, and she was offering services that neither one of us were at all interested in, just based on a whole lot of stuff, And I was telling my buddy, I said, "Do you remember when we went to blah blah?" He's like, "How the fuck do you remember this stuff?" No, I don't remember any of that. I'm like, I don't know. It's just music is like, you know how they say synesthesia, like you associate colors and things with sound and everything. I just associate moments where I just can remember these things. It's very bizarre. I don't know why, but this album I remember very much when I got it. It was my first album. I liked it, but I was just experimenting in so much stuff. And keep in mind, I'm really into Porcupine Tree right around this time, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. I become immersed in the PT world and Steven Wilson. So this is a really good album to kind of compare to Porcupine Tree in a lot of ways. There's very much a symmetry there. Does it sound like Porcupine Tree? No. Does it sound as English as Porcupine Tree does? No. But does it sound as progressive as Porcupine Tree is at that era? Yes. And I'm not going to lie. This is maybe going to rank at the top of my list of albums. I'm going to say it right out front. It's a 10 out of 10 album. I think every song is fucking amazing on this album. I think they're at their songwriting peak. The next album is very good, but it does trail off, especially the second half of the album. But this album, man, it starts out with Morningstar, or The Way, I'm sorry. Man, that Gilmore delayed, drenched fucking riff is so goddamn killer. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's up-tempo. It's like Floyd on metal steroids, man. Amazing song. Morningstar, kind of a radio rocker in the U.S. vein that has a lot of stellar musicianship and catchiness, great vocals by Passy. Nightfall, holy shit, forgot about the soprano sax on the intro. Man, talk about going full Prague. Right there you go. Right there it is. That's the moment. And guess what? I absolutely fucking love it. I love it. God damn it. I fucking love that soprano sax, Jimmy. Eat that one. I'm just kidding. I just love it. But then it gets into that killer Maiden-esque galloping thing. Very proggy to the max. Stellar track, man. I fucking love that song. Tuonela, another banger. This one just doesn't let up. Greed.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Greed is probably my favorite track along with Nightfall and Summer's End. But man, those Arabic stars, and then now we're starting to hear sitars. I don't know if they're real sitars, if they're, whatever. I don't, maybe, well, they probably would be real sitars at this point in time. Yeah. You also get some growls on that song, some nice heavy growls. Monster track, very much still death metal, but with a twist of monster riffs back with organs and clean chorus. And man, it's just Greed is just a badass track. Divinity, heavy, epic grandeur, and it has a bit of poppy, sort of uplifting chorus vibe to it. Another banger, a huge feeling to this music, and that's what I'll give Simon FMA a lot of credit for. All these songs sound massive; they just sound huge, right? Shining, super catchy, great chorus again, just killer arrangements and a mix of the instruments, mind blowing how good these tracks are. Withered, up tempo, speedy. This song has a theremin on it. You know what theremin is, right? The woo, woo, the weird, like fucking the Beach Boys track. More Arabic scales, great sounding synths. Love it. Another killer track, Rusty Moon, really cool folky jazz track with lots of sweet flute, man. We got an Ian Anderson sighting on this one. And then Summer Ends, man. And Wade, I agree with you, man. Magical track. Alt rock sounding, but it's just awesome, man. I'm sure this is the album that 98% of their old school fans into just the death metal only had to have jumped ship. But it's a magical album of killer songs that all have their own sound and singularness and identity. They aren't a death metal band here anymore. It's just the reality of it. They're just not. They're a progressive metal, alt metal band with deathy moments. This is a 10 out of 10, man. This and Elegy are just absolutely fucking monstrous albums in their canon for me. When I went back and listened to these, I was like, oh my God. And they started to kick in. You walked away when I was talking about my weird memory. Even sick as I am, I just can associate things. And these two albums, man, like Peter made a great point. Summer for Elegy. This one just has this, I don't know, man, this beautiful, make me feel good vibe. It's just
kind of a fall album, I would say. Like a fall album, I would say.
Yeah, and the thing is, because that's my favorite season, but the thing about most metal that I listen to, I don't want to feel good. I really want it to be doomy and depressing and melancholic, but this is not that, man. It's just it's a fucking super mega banger. I love this album, man. 10 out of 10. All right, moving on real quick. Universum. Jimmy, I'll let you go into this one. The sax becomes a little more prevalent here, not always to the betterment of the album.
Yeah, I don't have physicals of the rest of the albums we're going to talk about.
Oh, you don't?
Tonight.
Okay, Peter does.
I ordered it.
I have them.
There you go. And that's
weirdest cover, man. Like, what the fuck is that cover? What is it? It looks like
like some kind of worm or
like
something.
abstract shit like that, but I don't know, man. There's something about it I dig, and it's like E.T.'s neck going into.
Yeah, it is exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Man, this is the one I spent. Why don't you go ahead first, Pete, since you got it?
Yeah, let's put this back. An old ordering form there for nuclear bath. Yeah, so this came out April 2001. Like I said earlier, I picked this up probably 2004, or mid 2000s with Tuonela. So got these around the same time. This is the first album where there's the progression from the previous album is that it's minimalist, I suppose. It's almost like Tuonela maybe part 2 to an extent. So all that has left, he's been replaced by Nicholas, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his surname. Santarari joins then on keyboards.
You're right. I forgot to mention Santeri becomes a full member here, and they add Nicholas. Oh God.
Yeah.
Etalavuri takes over on bass
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
from OG opus. So also Sakara Kuko is back for the horns as a studio credit. And again, this is Relapse, comes out April 3rd, 01. Nuclear Blast in Europe, Simon FMA again. So sorry, go ahead.
Like it was mentioned before, they always have a great opener. I think Alone is, for me, a great opener.
Killer.
Pazzi's vocals are a highlight here, and I actually do like the saxophone and the psychedelic guitars. Goddess of the Sad Man, another cool track. Loads of driving guitars, really good chorus, really powerful song. I think The Night Is Over. I think from here in the next album, you hear a bit more sort of bluesy sort of
big time. Yep.
stuff coming into the repertoire. Shatters Within. I want to hear I've taken another one. A very relaxed opener that explodes into one of the best songs on the album. This is catchy as hell. Passy shines here as well. Crimson Wave, really groovy Doors-esque kind of keyboard melody, supported by a heavy ass riff and some smooth saxophone and cool Hammond. I like that. So
Dude, I love it too, man. It's right about Crimson Wave where things start to, or Drifting Memories. That's when shit starts last couple tracks just are not that great.
For this page only have one tick. So yeah, Drifting Memories starts out of the blocks really quickly, but then soon settled into kind of mid-paced drifter, maybe following the title of the song, before reviving itself with a squealing saxophone, driving guitars, and kind of spacey keys. The next song I have a tick against, Forevermore. I do like that. Picks up the quality, a bit more engaging than the previous song, much more dynamic guitar lines, and Pazzi puts in another really good performance. Fearless Sin, interesting acoustic guitar opening, a bit more chilled again, quite a poppy song with Pazzi's uplifting chorus. Capture State, which is a really decent song. Griff Stricken Heart, longest song on the album, cool rocker with plenty of Hammond organ, but yeah, average for them. So yeah, I think some mentioned it earlier, I think this is top heavy, and it does kind of fade out a wee bit.
Front loaded.
Yeah, front loaded. Yeah.
Yep.
So I would probably.
You put it great. This is the album where the songwriting started to kind of. There was no real progression here. It was kind of like it's Tuonela Part 2, but not nearly as good in a lot of ways. I mean, there's some really good tracks. First 3 or 4 or 5 tracks are really, really good, and then it really starts to peter off. And man, wait till we get to the next one.
I disagree.
Listen to this guy. All right, I love it. Do it.
I think I spent a lot of time with this album.
Don't you dare say it's better than Tuonela. Don't you dare.
Well, I mean, it would be really hard to say that because it's interesting because they're very similar, but yet kind of far apart too, in a way. I just think it's definitely in the same vein, but I feel like this album has a different vibe, like a really quite different vibe than Tuonela.
I agree. I agree with that.
There is more of a poppier kind of element to it. I don't know. I just like the first time I listened to it, I honestly never listened to this record until preparing for this deep dive, because I just felt like it probably would be up my alley. And first time I listened to it, I was like, for some reason I just felt like I needed to spend time with it and try to like understand what they were doing. And as a result of like 5 or 6 listens of this album, it really grew on me big time. And I honestly like the whole album. I like every song, but I find the second half to be stellar.
Man,
I love Drifting Memories, Forevermore, Veil of Sin. All those songs are fantastic. I love Passy on those songs. I think his melodies on those are kind of the most memorable in a lot of ways. They just get stuck in my head. The saxophone is a little too heavy on this record for me. Again, like And the guy is a really good player, of course.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm fucking floating in a Wham video half the time, But
As Nick said, Karelian whisper. Karelian whisper.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly how I worded it to Jeff in a text yesterday or whatever it was. It was like, this is too much like fucking Natural Whispers or whatever the fuck the name of the song is.
Careless
Whisper. And
Careless
just for
Whisper,
the record, no fucking trash talking Wham or George Michael, because I love that fucking shit.
Yeah, and like I told you, I dig Wham too. I just not in my Amorphis so much.
I get you.
But I don't know, man. It just this one, it definitely feels like it is
I'm a little surprised. It's still a very good album. I'm not going to argue that at all. No.
Yeah, and like it's definitely the least, the smallest progression in sound for the band. They kind of just like took Tuonela and just kind of went for it and said, let's just see how really far we can go, like with the sound. To me, that's kind of what it feels like they went here, and I do feel like they really tried to play to the strengths of Passy as a vocalist, and
I think you're right.
As a result, that's the way the music kind of turned out. It is at times like some of the more like where Amorphis has been very melancholic. There is a lot more sort of like brighter kind of uplifting kind of stuff here, and just like interesting. The melodies in general, they just go like interesting places. I don't know if it was like Drifting Memories or that. Man, you see, I'm not going to try and sing it because I can't sing, but I really feel like the second half of this record is my favorite. I love the whole thing, really. I like every song. But the second half of the record, man, dude, Forevermore, Veil of Sin, those two songs are my favorite songs on the record. They're so good. And I just love, it's mainly because I just feel like they're just big Passy songs, And I don't know what it is, man. It's like, this is one of those ones that just kind of knocked me sideways. And I was like, wow, I really like this. I don't know why.
That's great. I'm glad. I mean, that's the whole point of doing these, is to kind of rediscover things.
Yeah. And it's, I've seen like different opinions on, who likes this one better or Tuonela better. I think, people have different opinions. For me, they both kind of exist sort of the same. I like them both about the same.
Okay.
But I probably would say I like Tuonela better because the vibe of that record is more in the line of what I'm into. But this one, like, whereas like the vibe here is like not usually my thing, it just kind of like grabbed me and sucked me in a bit with the melodics and the songwriting. And they just they're always good.
It was kind of a pleasant surprise then. In a way. Yeah,
big time. Yeah, and as a result, I really like this record a lot. It's really good. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not going to shit on the record, but I do not feel the same about the second half of the record like you do. I feel it's weaker. I think it gets off to a banger of a start. Alone is a super banger I have right here. Super banger of an opener. Catchy in the way that the way was. Those delayed Gilmore guitars, man, riding along with those with a monster chorus, man. Killer track. Goddess of the Sad Man. Lots of organ. Up-tempo rocker. Really cool brooding chorus. Again, more up-tempo percussively. The verses are solid. Not on the same level as Alone. And it does have a weird 80s pop band vibe to it. I was trying to, like Aha or something like that, strangely. I was like, man, I kept thinking, because I always do that, as you guys know, when I do these, I often draw parallels to other music that I listen to and other styles I listen to. I just kept hearing Aha on that song, weirdly. The Night Is Over, psychedelic rocker with some almost bluesy, proggy weirdness going on. Really killer track. Lots of weird tremolo style effects going on, making it sound super trippy. Santori has to be a huge reason why these songs became far more progressive and complex. I think his addition is huge, and Opu even said that. You can't discount what Santori has done for this band as far as pushing them as far as musicians and incorporating other styles and other sounds into their thing. Crimson where am I at? Shatters Within. I love that song. The Night Is Over. Moody guitars, synths open up into a dark and haunting track. Lots of layers, Really big atmospheric chorus. Love that one. Crimson Wave kind of weirdly sounds like a late 60s psych pop song like Love or Incense and Peppermints, like Strawberry Alarm Clock. It has that vibe to me for some weird reason. Has some sexy ass porn soundtrack styled sax. Are you guys old enough to remember that? You probably aren't, but trust me, I was around in the 70s, man. I in the 80s, the 70s porn had that sax going all over everything, man. And it's in this song in a good way, in a good way. Solid track, funky, jazzy. Drifting Memories, super up-tempo hard rock with tons of guitar melodies and effects-laden stuff going on.
Oh, man, that chorus in Drifting Memories, man.
I was just going to say, kind of poppy, again, with sax all over it. Not sex, sax all over it. Really cool track. Forevermore. Solid track, but not much different than Drifting, to be honest. Probably my least favorite track on the album. Veil of Sin, Ballad That Leaves Me a Little Meh. The sax
that chorus in that song, though. Veil of Sin, the chorus.
I'll go back. I will go back because I want to hear what you're hearing. So it sounds like a film soundtrack song, like a John Hughes film soundtrack song. That's what it sounded like to me. Captured Sin, hate to say it, just another meh track. It's not bad. It's just not that memorable, like the first 2/3 of the album. And then Grieve Stricken Heart. Is that a Finnish thing? Grieve, not grief. Down tempo, darker ballad, like the verses quite a bit, but the transition, the chorus is kind of awkward. But I do like Passy's vocals on this song. A little cheesy at the chorus, kind of lame closer for me. This album starts out hot and starts to trail off by the end for me. Unlike Elegy or Tuonela, which are both bangers start to finish. It's still a very good album overall, with the first 6 tracks nailing it as very distinctive tracks. Then it starts to drag the final 3 or 4 songs. Jimmy does not feel that way. I totally respect his opinions. I give this a 7.75 out of 10. Still a good mark for this album.
Pretty good.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So the next album. Here we go. Peter, where are you at here? 3 hours. Can we do another 30 minutes?
Yeah, well, this is the last one we're doing, isn't it?
No, we got one more. We got the Eclipse.
Oh, I stopped here.
All right. Well, we'll let you do this. Then you can. I wanted to get to the first of the Jutsen albums, but I see what you did there. So we'll let you go first here, and then you can hear our opinions on this. If you want to bail out, you can do so. Then up to you.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick on this one. Far From the Sun. Jan Resberger returns on the drums, first time since '94. Last album with Posse, who sounds a bit tired. Ooh, I jumped ahead. Sorry. Shit, I don't have the date on this one. I'll find it.
May 2003 it came out.
Okay. And is it on Relapse still?
It's my copy is Virgin EMI.
Yeah, they got on the big label on this one.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
All right.
EMI?
EMI, okay.
It's even a copy controlled CD, this one.
Yeah, it was at Finvox Studio, recorded November 2002 through January of 03. Out May 26, 2003. Came out on Virgin, EMI, and Nuclear Blast. So they had some sort of they probably licensed this, or I'm not sure who they were contracted with, but it was recorded in Finvox, and they do their own production on this, and I think it suffers a little for that. But go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I remember when this came out. I had heard some of it. At this stage, I don't know. I wasn't really that interested, so I only picked this up in the last 10, 11 years. I got it cheap. I really want to like it. I only listened to this once for this deep dive. It's quite a safe and offensive record for me. I've some notes here, but I was kind of just like, let's just get through this album. And I hate to say that because it's not bad. Yeah,
but it ain't good either. I'm gonna be straight up. It's man, it's just uninspired, and I don't know
Yeah,
whether it was because Passy was losing interest or there was inner turmoil going on, but this just album, or maybe it was because they went to a bigger, major label and they started to go, well, you gotta
yeah,
do this and you gotta do that, and I didn't really realize because I missed all the data, putting the, how I always like to tell the producer and all that stuff. I missed that, and that makes sense that this maybe they were
yeah.
forced to do something they didn't want to do.
And had he joined? Is it Ajatara? Is that how you pronounce it? Had he joined that band at this
I don't
stage?
know. I'm not really
So
familiar with what he
because
did.
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
from what I've read about it, the split was amicable, but I don't know if they're just saying that. But maybe his heart was in other things at this point. But
Could have been.
yeah, Day of Your Beliefs. Now you're on about Jeff making comparisons to other music. I do like to throw a few curveballs in myself. Now
Yeah.
hear me out. Hear me out with this one. Very folky vocals and guitars at the start of the song that is almost Falkenbach-esque in their more mellow moments.
I don't know that band.
Absolutely brilliant band.
I would agree.
Okay. Sorry.
So,
I
but
know the name. I've just never listened to it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose when you go back to Amorphis and those early albums, they are probably alongside bands like Skyclad and Sabat. They're probably one of the pioneers of folk metal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like Corpa Kalani and all those. Yeah.
Yeah, and a whole range, all the big and stuff. Like even Falkenbach wouldn't be twee at all, like Corp Planny, but I definitely think that opening of this song anyway, kind of the vibes I got from it. Unfortunately, the song doesn't really then develop much from there. I do like.
I think you
Planetary.
could say that about most of these songs. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's just the album just seems to be missing. I like the folky, mystical kind of melodies that they had, and they're few and far between here. Planetary Misfortunes, decent, good up tempo song. There's a wee bit of sort of mystical Eastern Sitar type vibes from it. Interesting enough for me to elevate this song. It's probably maybe one of the better ones on it. Evil Inside was decent, not overly interesting though. Lots of psychedelic organ, but the vocals on the first are not really my thing. And I know, like you said, this is for Passy's maybe checking out a wee bit. Morning Soil, another okay song, but nothing special to hook me in. I did note that the guitar solo here is quite excellent. Maybe a saving grace for that song.
Dude, that's exactly. And actually, this song, the ending of this song is probably the best part of the whole album.
Yeah.
It just
Right.
builds and builds into this thing. And,
Yeah.
and I noticed Jimmy's being quiet, so I got a feeling he's going to give this like a 10 out of 10.
Oh no, definitely not. Wait, what song was that?
Morning Soil.
Okay, yeah, I don't really remember that one.
It builds. It's a weird song because I'll get to it. Sorry, Peter. Stealing your thunder.
So Far From the Sun, bit better, folko melody, kind of gentle song, inoffensive, ethereal solitude. Another quite chill sort of opening, there's almost like a reggae lick in the song, and it kind of progresses into a bit of a ballad. Killing Goodness of a techno-sided upbeat rocker, cool use of the Hammond organ. Again, one of the better songs on the album. God of Deception, okay song I've put. Higher Ground, kind of tick against that. Some interesting Eastern sitars, percussion in this one. Smithereen, straight up driving rock song with a killer guitar solo that sees out the song and album, with Pazzy singing I Still Pretend to Be Real over and over again. So I wonder what that means.
Oh,
Close
wow.
out the album. So I don't know, was that some kind of like Easter egg sort of part of it? Is that a
Could
parting
be, I
shot
don't know.
to fans or something to let them know?
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe he knew he was leaving after this. I don't really know the dynamics of what happened here. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about that? Because I don't.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I couldn't even be bothered to go back and look through the old magazines and signs for any interviews at this period. I think at this stage it was. a fill of Amorphis for today.
I got you. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Great day, but
hmm
I needed a break from it.
But we'll wrap up with this, and if you want to stick around for Jimmy and I for the final two for Eclipse, if you want to bail out, I totally get it.
I'll listen to Eclipse. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy. Oh, did
Yeah,
I?
I mean,
Did I do the data on this one? I can't remember. Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
you know, it does look like Passy had already done one record with his is it Ahatara? Ajatara?
Yeah, I just had to
Which
stop
are-
with it.
I've never listened to the. Are they? Have you gotten into them, Peter? Are they,
Yeah,
I
I've
know who
heard
they are.
sort of black metal.
Oh really?
Yeah.
They've got like 7-8 records,
Yeah.
something like that. But I mean, their first record was 2001, and
Is he still in the band? It's still an
Yeah.
ongoing thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, 2001. He was on the first record for them, so you know he probably had already done that, and then you know you can only imagine that he'd done that, and Amorphis at this point is kind of in a weird area. I don't know how big they were with those last two records. I don't really remember. I mean, I don't feel like the metal world was really totally accepting of those records. Maybe at least at the time. I don't know. Like they probably are a lot more now. But
Well, they were probably more accepted in the mainstream prog sort of
Yeah.
thing. And I'm like looking at this and I'm thinking,
right, but you got to wonder,
Oh.
did it actually make that crowd? Like, you know, because sometimes shit like that goes under the radar for the intended audience. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, so they come out with Far From the Sun, right? This is the big label record, you know, because they've been doing some catchy stuff. I don't, you know, I can only speculate what went wrong, but
right.
to me, it feels like it was all like all the everything kind of coalesced into the ending of the first era of the band, which to me is this.
Yeah, very much so.
Sun. I mean, because in a lot of ways, like, you know, they do this album, and yeah, I mean, I would rank it probably the lowest in the discography, even though I still think it's an okay record. I like some of the songs on it. It's obvious though that to me this feels like it's the first time that they're not like
All on the
they
same
lost-
page.
Yeah, like they lost like their vision for what they were trying to do, and like
Yeah.
so they definitely like kind of took elements of what they've been doing so far, but like they, you know, I mean, I think probably this album has like the most sort of like grunge and pop kind of elements.
100%. Yep.
Which really like obviously they tried it and figured out that it doesn't really work for them. I don't know.
Well, and
like,
again, I think what comes into play there is that they're on a major label, a big major label.
yeah, that's got to
not
have
a
something to do
middle
with it, right? I mean, EMI. I mean, that was like the big
Massive.
thing. And,
Huge.
Yeah.
yeah, try to turn them into something they're not, and maybe that's what happened. I don't know, but that said, I mean, I still think it's a decent record. I mean, there's some good songs on here. I like Day of Your Beliefs. I like Planetary Misfortune, and Far From the Sun. The title track is really good. That one kind of has a little bit of the elements of the old, and Ethereal Solitude and Smithereens. Those are probably the 4 tracks on this record that kind of stand out to me, and I think Passy's really good on those, even though he does sound kind of tired and maybe not as invested in this album as he was previously. And I think it kind of almost sounds like a pretty amicable thing. Like if Amorphis is going to continue from here, it's, I mean, look, they did, you know, sort of these psych prog kind of albums, and yeah, they could continue doing that. But if they're going to continue doing so, maybe they've kind of just, you know, they've run the course with Passy as a vocalist. And
I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and I hate to say that because I love Passy. I think he's done amazing work with the band. I love everything he's done so far with these guys, and so it's kind of a bummer to listen to in a lot of ways because it's the first time again, and I don't feel like I've ever felt this. There might be a couple of records a little later, but that really felt like they just were kind of running through the numbers and just putting something out, and maybe that's not what focus was because they were on a bigger label. So how is that like? How are you on a bigger label yet you're sounding the least inspired you've ever sounded? You know.
Yeah.
But what does that say about the music business in general?
No,
and all that?
exactly. It is. It's chew them up and spit them out thing. They want hits. They want to sell
Yeah.
units.
And I think they
And
tried to go for some hits here, you know, and like honestly, I mean, I still think, I mean, there's some good choruses on here, good melodies. You know, it just for the most part, it's just pretty uneven as a record, and yeah, I mean, it's definitely unfortunate that it's considered like the unforgotten Amorphis record because it still has some good shit. But
well, as a reference point, both you guys talked about. Both you guys. God damn it! What the fuck's going on here? There we go. Both of you guys talked about that you dipped out on Amorphis at various times and came back. This is the album that made me go, what the fuck is this, man? This is, if I want a fucking Puddle of Mud album, or I'm not comparing it to them, but, you know, I'm trying to remember, like, you know, the Godsmack album, all those bands that were coming out around this time that were getting major radio play. If I wanted that, I don't want it in my Amorphis. I'm not saying that that's what they sound like, but that's the vibe I got from this album that was just very uninspired as far as writing wise. A lot of these songs just don't feel or sound fully fleshed out for me. They just feel like they're trying to throw darts at a dartboard and figure something out. Dave, Your Belief, solid opener, has that epic, bombastic, sort of Thin Lizzy vibe to it, you know, with the dueling guitars, only Finnish. Planetary Misfortune. Okay, here we go. This is going to ruin all the Passy albums for both of you guys, okay? But this was the album I was like, oh, I know who I think he sounds like sometimes. It dawned on me listening to this album, this song in particular. I'm like, fuck, that's who I've been trying to think of. Passy was singing the verses that a singer I was trying to recall that he sounds like. It occurred to me. Are you ready?
Yep.
Man, I don't want to do this to you guys. The dude from fucking Smash Mouth. Somebody once told me it sounds like him.
didn't expect that one.
No.
I'm just telling you. Go back and
if I hear
listen
that,
to
I'll
it.
have to go back and listen to that with that in mind.
Listen to it with
Yeah.
that in mind, particularly this album, man. Holy motherfucker. I was like,
American
God damn.
Pie.
Huh?
I have visions of American Pie now.
Yeah, right. Visions of it, right. And then I say after that, Smash Mouth, holy fuck, did that just change my ability to get into this album suddenly? The song itself has a ton of swirling sight keys, weirdness going on, but the vocals bug me now. And they didn't bug me on the prior two albums, but this one they bugged me on, okay? Because he just sounds a lot like it. The nasally twanginess to his voice got to me. But anyways, back to Planetary. Pretty cool Middle Eastern vibe to this one, even though the chorus is kind of weak. Evil Inside, the hit. This is the one they did a video for. They definitely began to experiment with alt rock bordering on grunge styles at this point. With songs like this, it's solid but kind of derivative. Morning Soil, and not morning in the morning, but mourning like you're mourning for death. Slow burn leads into a pretty heavy bridge, but the chorus doesn't really fit the song that well. Really like elements of this track a lot, but as a whole, it's kind of meh. The chorus does have a killer atmospheric guitar solo, Peter. That's the best solo on the album.
Yeah.
And the ending of the track is killer as it builds and builds and builds. Far from the Sun, organ-heavy track, solid, not exceptional, but pretty solid. Ethereal Solitude, weird and almost reggae. That one I hear fucking Bob Marley all the time. It's so weird, man.
Yeah.
I like that song.
It's good. I will say that it's where'd it go? Nothing terrible, but weird. It just doesn't fit the overall vibe of the band and the sound of the album. Killing Goodness, very much sounding like a 70s barroom band. Starts heavy, gets proggy, and the keys get heavy. One of the better, more outside the box tracks. I like Killing Goodness. God of Deception, cool intro, atmospheric and super moody and mysterious. I love trying to decipher what I write sometimes in these things.
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't even know what it is. Heavy as in something heavy as in metallic, but still has that alt metal sound. Solid track overall. Higher ground, sitars and acoustic guitars with exotic sounding synths. Instrumentation builds into an intro, very Moroccan sounding because of all the congos and the percussiveness, that that cashmere sort of vibe, from Led Zeppelin. Sorry, I've been pretty good tonight so far. Pretty cool track, but then the song, especially Passy's vocals, just sort of are kind of lame, man. He just seems really uninspired on this album. Again, maybe he was out. Pretty meh closer. It's okay. I don't love it. This album continues the more commercial direction of the band as a whole. Has a few really good songs that hit the mark, like I went through above. But overall, this album was a pretty big disappointment when I got it. In fact, I jumped off the Amorphis train here and didn't return until about 2015 when I grabbed all the Tommy Jutson stuff, with the exception of the most current, the two most current ones, of which the last one I really, really like and need to own. The new one, we'll get there. Hang on. Oh, yeah, when Tommy was running the band. I just didn't love this album much, and I still don't. Back then I didn't love it, and I still don't love it. Man, pains me to do this, but I'm giving this a 5.5 out of 10. Just not into this album, man. It doesn't work for me. A lot of very middling songs on this one and few bangers. It's like they weren't prepared songwriting. It just really feels like these weren't fully fleshed out, thought out songs. And they did the production, so they don't have a producer there going, bro, you got to do this or change that. I'm not hearing it. These are mostly radio rock songs, and they're kind of boring. They're just not that great. Not the place to start with Amorphis for me at all. So there you go.
No, yeah.
All right.
I really wonder if they just, bit the big label train, and learn their lesson quickly.
Well, they go to Nuclear Blast after that. So they might have even gotten dropped because EMI wanted big numbers. That's possible. And maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know. We'd have to talk to one of the guys. I'd be really interested to talk to Isa or however you say his name, or Tommy Kuvasari or Jan, the guys that were there all along. Opu wasn't on these, so I couldn't really ask him. He's not part of that thing. So, all right, big change. That was, when did that come out again? I'm sorry, 03, right?
And that's 03. Yeah, and also, interestingly, I didn't know. Wade just pointed out that Passy was in Shape of Despair. I had no idea that.
I didn't know that. No. Is Shape of Despair the Beauty and the Beast band?
No.
Okay.
They're
almost
funeral doom, like really heavy death doom.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Oh, okay.
And I'd like to go check out some of the his other band too. I'm not familiar with any of that.
I'm not either, man. Not at all.
That Shape of Despair.
Yeah, it is like a Diet A Alice in Chains song.
It is, yeah.
Good.
It has the most like grunge elements that they, because they flirted with the grunge stuff, but like this one, they really it was kind of like, what are they fucking doing now?
Yeah. I just don't like this album. I don't think I'll ever like it. I went the other ones I wanted to listen to a second time. I had no desire to listen to this album again. I was like, yeah, it just doesn't do anything. And it makes perfect sense that's when I was like, all right, these guys are done for me. I'm just not into them. But thankfully I came back because there's a lot of really good albums coming up here, but we'll talk about probably in the final, whenever we can get it together to do the second half of the discography. I think we'll talk about one of the small little problems I see developing after this album going forward. All right, so Jimmy, I'm going to take this one first and let you wrap up. Eclipse comes out February 15th, 06 on Nuclear Blast, Sonic Pump Studios, mixed that and mastered at Finvox. Added Tommy Jutson, however you say that. Man, he makes a massive difference. Massive difference. Much more inspired album. Right off the bat, man. Power in the vocals and just much better songwriting. And, you know, they're on Nuclear Blast, so maybe that's why they feel more at home. A lot of artists, when they get on Nuclear Blast, they want to stay there. And yeah, Wade says great comeback album. I agree. So Two Moons, much heavier, much heavier than the last 3 albums actually. Still proggy, but emphasis on more metallic, heavy songs. Still melodic, and Utzon sounds great. Super heavy yet still melodic, thanks to the keys. House of Sleep, man, I love this track. Ah, so good. Solid, epic, up-tempo track. Reminds me of Elegy style material, as does this whole album. It reminds me quite a bit of Elegy Light, maybe, if you would. Light, by light, I mean not as elaborate songs, more streamlined. Let's say Elegy streamlined. Utzon has such a resonant melodic voice in his cleans. He's not nasal like Passy. That's not shitting on Passy. I'm just saying it's a different thing. But I like Tommy better overall. As far as this one has a great, massive chorus. Leave Scars, very Jethro Tull, man. Holy fuck, this is like right out of the Jethro Tull handbook of songwriting. But it's heavy as fuck, epic as fuck, massively killer track. Probably my favorite song on the album. Man, that huge melodic chorus. What a banger. But still very folky. Still has, you know, it's just heavy metal, but yet it's progressive and just sounds fucking killer, man. The flutes work very well on this track. I don't know who did those. I didn't write that down either. I don't know why I missed some of these things. Under a Soil and Black Stone. Kind of a weird title. Under a Soil and Black Stone. I don't know what the A is doing in there, but anyway, probably a Finnish thing. Building ballad, solid, but drags at first. But then when it goes into the delayed Gilmore guitar riffy bit, picks up tempo, it gets really, really good. Percolate. I'm sorry, I lied. Leave Scars is my second favorite track. Fuck, this is a banger, man. So heavy, man. That opening riff, the growls, killer leads, melodic, but man, so heavy, man. This is the guitar.
Borderline evil, you know?
Huh?
It's borderline evil, you know, that fucking riff, dude.
And if anything, it's probably their most death metal song in 15 years or whatever. I mean, it's just so, but it's still melodic, man. It's still really melodic, still really earwormy and catchy, but it's fucking heavy, for Christ's sake. That's my favorite song in there. The Smoke, cool, wistful sort of acoustic bass yearning track that has a lot of great melodies and great synth melodies. Same Flesh, cool atmosphere, building into pretty solid track here. Lots of 70s prog. Brother Moon, oh man, another biggie. Man, Thin Lizzy meets heavy metal, killer track, huge up-tempo, groovy, and it's groovy. Like, this is a groovy fucking track right here, man. Catchy as fuck, and transitions to the chorus is stellar. Drums are stellar. Killer growls. You got even folkiness in here, traditional folk sounding stuff. Another favorite on the album, probably in the top 3 with Percolate and Perkelly and what was the other one I said? Leave Scars. Where am I at? Empty Opening. Great track. The Gilmore delayed Wah and Waldren's guitars rule. Longest track, another banger. There's also a bonus track on the one I listened to called Stone Woman, which is an acoustic-based song. Cool. Could have easily fit on the album. Man, what an excellent return to form. Clearly, Tommy Utzon had a huge hand in however they reconnected to their muse, I guess is the way I want to put it. They did on this album. It's the songwriting is very close to Elegy and Tuonela, and it's what made those albums so special. It's experimental, a little less experimental, and a little less overtly proggy, but it's still killer. And it kind of gives you hints. Oh fuck! Oh, it says, God damn, I can't. This is terrible. It says, and let's be hints as unique as what I wanted to say there was, let's be honest, as unique as Passy was in the band, Tommy is far more multi-dimensional, and I gotta say it, he's a better singer overall. He just is. This is easily in their top tier album level. Oh fucking Christ, Jeff! I'm trying to wrap this up. I'm not even drinking too. This is easily in their top album tier level material. But we'll see where that goes from here in the next episode when we wrap up the discography. This is a 9.25 out of me. Probably a 9.5, actually. It's fucking killer, man. Killer album. So, Jimmy, you can take us out, and then I'll have a quick couple of last-minute things to wrap up with, and we'll get Peter to bed.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is like I refer to it as like the third wave of Amorphis, and we're still riding that wave. The first wave was like the death metal. Second wave was the progression Passy era, and now
The Tommy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting too because like this is where I mean, like we're so many. We're going to talk about this on the next episode, but like because we're so many albums in from Tommy being in the band, but like God, they landed on such a perfect blend of their music on this record. And I often wonder, did they already have that figured out before they found Tommy, or did they find Tommy?
No, because they had 100 people. They got 100 tapes to audition for this, and Tommy was kind of
music written beforehand.
Oh, you mean yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. They may have, yeah.
Because like the music, like it seems like, did they already have in their mind that like, okay, this is what we're going to do with the music?
Where we want to go? Where we want to go?
Kind of everything we did. We're going to go back to being somewhat of a metal band. I like to think of this more of just like, folky, progressive, melodic death metal sort of thing. I mean, at this point, the terms are stupid, but like, like everything that they took all the best elements of the band and decided we need to just like throw all this into a blender and just write really good songs with it. But we have to have the perfect vocalist for it. You know what I mean? So did they decide that before? Because like, imagine what this album would sound like with Passy. I can't really place it in my head.
Nope.
Like he probably would have done okay with it, but it's like you got to have like the versatility of a guy like Tommy, right? Or
yeah, Tommy's growls are they're a unique animal.
I wonder if they were really like looking at Opeth and being like, we need a guy like him. Like I mean, whereas like Mike was probably listening to early Amorphis and art influences art kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if they were like, they look at Opeth, they're like, man, we need a guy that can do all that shit, and then we can really truly see the next era of the band.
If I could interject just 1 second, bringing up Opeth, you have to really look at the fact that Opeth, whether you like him or hate him, John Holm hates him. I don't know why. I'm like,
really?
Yeah, he hates him. Man. He won't exactly say exact. He thinks they're derivative. I'm like, of what exactly? Every other band. Here's the reality with Opeth. Whether you like him or not, I love the new track. I think it's awesome. Stoked for the album, and I'm hearing. Was hoping I would get an advanced copy. I'm still crossing my fingers. Whether you like him or not, Opeth, without question, one of, if not the most influential band of that Swedish death metal scene. Can you really think of anybody that's bigger than them in the Swedish death metal scene?
I mean, Meshuggah maybe, but I mean,
yeah, but Meshuggah is more the gent thing, so they're kind of a little bit different from them.
But they're as popular. I mean,
but you know what? I don't think Meshuggah would draw as much as Opeth in a live show here in the States.
Maybe.
I could be wrong. My point being that Opeth's reach is huge. They've influenced so many bands. And I was talking to Scott. I don't know if he's still in here anymore. Scott, Nick. You're talking to him, right? Jimmy, you've been talking to Scott? The guy from the Discord?
Yep.
Yeah.
I started talking, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's in your neck of the woods. So I was just going to get you guys connected. Opeth's reach is just massive, dude. There's so many bands, too many bands that have come out in the last 30 years or 25 years or so that, I could, if I sat down and thought about it, I could probably name you 25 bands that basically rip off the Opeth template. But Amorphis was there before Opeth, obviously, but there's no doubt that they saw the success that Opeth were having and kind of were, and not that Eclipse sound anything. I don't think Eclipse sounds like Opeth at all.
No.
But I think you're right about the dynamic. They needed a dynamic frontman that could kind of do it all. You know what I mean?
Do it all. Yeah.
He could
Well,
do
that's the
that
point.
that beastly growl, and his growl is fucking awesome. And he could also sing very, very well clean.
Well,
And
and
those
that's the
guys
thing
were
about
hard to
Amorphis.
find.
I mean, that's the thing about Amorphis is they're a band that has to push a lot of buttons. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to be a one-trick pony. If they're going to continue, going forward, they have to be able to touch upon a lot of things. And I think what they did with Passy at the end of the day was like might have been a little bit of limiting. As good of a vocalist as he was,
I think that's what it was.
It was not going to work. Like doing like they weren't going to just like be able to really take all these styles and put them together and be like kind of a hybrid style band. Even like Opeth could be. Like with a vocalist that can't just like really just, completely command. That's the thing about Tommy is the guy is a commanding vocalist. He's not only got
Great way to.
he's got the chops, man, but he's just like he's perfect at all the different things he does. And his cleans they're amazing. They're commanding. They're powerful. They're metal. They're not saying Passy sound like a pussy or anything, but they're just fucking like really ballsy kind of vocals, Yeah,
you don't think about radio rock when you hear Tommy's clean vocals. You hear something very unique.
Right. And so I think like in looking back at their trajectory from Elegy on was that's kind of what they were kind of wanting to do, So like once they hit that, it's like, okay, they took 3 years off and then I guess it was 3 or 4 years, 2006 Eclipse comes out, right? So they found this guy out of nowhere. I know he was in another band, but I don't know if anybody knows.
Sinistra or something like that.
Yeah.
Sinistra.
Look, fucking, phenomenal record, to come back with. Every song on here is great. You just run the gamuts here. You hear a lot of the old stuff. But you really kind of hear a new, completely. It's like they came out of the butterfly came out, from the caterpillar or whatever. It's like they really birthed the new kind of sound that they're going to go with for forever now. And where it's like
7 albums worth. We got 7 albums of Tommy in the next.
What we're going to find
albums.
so interesting is that like from here on, it's like they stick in the same realm. Now they've like settled into a comfortable formula for going forward.
You're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
but you're right. But you're 100% right. All very good albums that we're going to talk about coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of good stuff. But without jumping too far ahead, like you could tell listening to this,
formula.
This really informs. Like you don't really get the sense that okay, like in a lot of ways these guys are done like really truly like experimenting and like reinventing themselves constantly. Like, they don't do that anymore. Like they kind of just like can come out and write some great songs and make it make it dynamic as they're good at doing. Like you don't really have to.
Well, I think they found a comfortable sweet spot. That's where we'll leave it going into to the next phase of this. So we'll have to figure out how we can get Mr. Peter back on. We'll probably have to do it on a weekend, which Jimmy, I know yours are hard to come by, but we'll have to figure out maybe
we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out like in a Sunday afternoon or something like that. Maybe. Well, I'll say right now, I'll check in with you a couple of weeks, and then I'll be texting you in like 4 days going. So when can we set up part 2? Because retired guys here, retired sick guys. So, but yeah, man, I think this was. Look, in wrapping up, a couple quick points. One, I don't know who the most successful Finnish metal bands are, but I can tell you right now, Amorphis has to be at the top of the list, along with like Children of Bodom, maybe, possibly, maybe Nightwish, Sonata Arctica, those Beauty and the Beast type bands.
Yeah.
I don't know, are there any bands you can think of that might be bigger than them, Peter? Knowing that a little bit more deeper than I do.
Finnish metal.
Hanoi Rocks would be huge, but they're from a different era and not from the same, stuff.
Swallow
the Sun. Swallow the Sun's pretty fucking
Yeah.
big, but I don't
Insomnium, yeah.
Somnium. But I don't think anybody's bigger than Amorphis. Do you really?
I mean, even those bands like Insomnium and Swallow the Sun, I mean, those are all like Amorphis influenced bands that are have hit pretty big in the States, but I don't know if they're as big.
They wouldn't draw well. Amorphis has only played here twice, down in Dublin.
Okay.
And I've been to see Swallow the Sun and Insomnium. They would get a far smaller crowd here anyway.
All right. Man, good stuff. Peter, huge thank you to you for, doing this on a weeknight when you're up in the middle of the night. I know you have certain challenges you got to deal with at home there with your kids and everything like that. So huge thank you to you for that. Huge thank you for wearing the gas mask shirt. Guys, come on now. I don't want to be like some of these dicks that just force feed this shit, but come on, man. These things, Jimmy and Serge wore his at MDF and got a lot of thumbs up on it and stuff like that. It's Marty, of course.
It's a really nice shirt.
Huh?
It's a really nice shirt. The design's great. Yeah.
Yeah, Lee, of course, crushed it on this thing. Lee over at Heavy Art Talk. I gave away way more of these than I sold, which is fine. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not, the one thing I don't do a lot on here is please like, subscribe, comment. But those things do go a long way because, it really does feed the algorithm. And a lot of people just don't help me out that way. I don't know why it is. Maybe they think I'm a dick or whatever. Who knows? I am a dick, but help me out with that. And, it's $25 for a shirt. Come on, man. It's a double-sided shirt. It's fucking killer, man.
Yeah.
Help me out, guys. Buy a shirt. Not because I'm hurting for money, but it will help kind of elevate the channel a little bit. And I like nothing cooler than seeing this out in the wild. You know what I mean? A couple people have sent me pics with them wearing the shirt, my friends. And I want to say thank you to all those people that did buy them. I know times are tough. Don't worry, man. Oh, I better not do it. I was going to get political. I won't do it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it because it'll get fucking way too carried away. But, hopefully better times are coming soon. Okay, so real quick on Jimmy, you got a video up, you said, right? You just posted, about a week ago or so?
Yeah, about a week ago, yeah. It's been a
Where
long
were
time
you again on that one? That was
it was in South
trip.
Utah, in the Bear Ears National Monument, the Dark Canyon of the South Canyons in Utah. So, yeah, if you got a chance, I spent a lot of time putting it together, but these, the videos take a lot of time to put together. So if you check it out, I appreciate it.
And Jimmy's a true artist, man. With me, I just fucking turn things on and go. I don't do any. Jimmy's tried already twice to teach me everything.
It, So hopefully, try to make it engaging and enjoyable. So
yeah, I'm a lazy fuck, so I don't really feel like editing. Although I really should because I can put together some really cool stuff. But Peter, you've got the Metal Vault. You're going to continue. One of these days, maybe when I die, you'll take over Gas Mask and Ambulance. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, I posted a lot of new stuff on my page recently. A lot of black metal, but I've a shit ton more new stuff I haven't. A lot of death metal as well picked up.
It's a sickness. I got a fever.
It is, yeah. I don't know. I don't have the space for it. But
I'm running out of space. Music. I'm running out of space. My vinyl, I'm kind of tapped out. I'm really trying to be a little less crazy about that. So, check Peter out.
Shout out to Tyler. Actually, he's to blame for some of it because he sent me a whole bunch of bands on Instagram to check out, and then I just went down a rabbit hole and ended up buying about 40, 50 CDs, black metal CDs from this year.
No, he'll put you through the ringer for sure.
Oh yeah.
Good job, Tim. Yeah, as I like to affectionately say to Tyler, you listen to bands that about 6 people in the world listen to. So, real quick on happenings, I got the list here now. So, Crypt Sermon tomorrow night. Man, please show up for Crypt Sermon, guys. Please give me a
I'll be there.
decent crowd. This is absolutely one of my fucking favorite bands right now, and I've got half the band. I've got all the OG guys. I've got Brooks, vocalist, Steve, the amazing guitar player. I've got Enrique, the drummer. Some of my favorite, and not only that, all Philly guys. And Philly is just crushing it with some great bands here lately. We're going to talk about this one in particular, but we're going to tap into these. These are all. If you don't own these albums or haven't checked this band out, get the fuck on it. They kill. So that's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I've got Collector Scum on August 15th. When's that? That's Friday? When is that? I don't even know what day that is. Anybody have a calendar, Andy?
Thursday, is it?
You might be right. Okay. Collector update on Thursday then at 9. I've got Alex Milicic from Vile Rights and Mortuous coming in on August 16th at 9:30. And then Ancients, Kenny Cook from Ancients. And that new album is fucking really, really good. Going to be a top 10, top 5 banger for me, that new Ancients that's coming out on the 31st. So those are the things that are planned, but then Dan Swano's definitely in for next week. I just got to figure out what day I'm going to get him in. And that's going to be cool. Now, the thing on Dan, just to know, we're going to talk mainly about the reissue campaign, the help me out. What is it?
Oh, Purgatory Afterglow?
Yes, Purgatory Afterglow. Thank you. We're going to talk about that, and then the one that's coming out in September, which it's the blue one. Not Spectral, it's the one after Purgatory. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, we're talking about those.
Do you know, do you ever listen to their EP from 94?
What's that?
Do you ever listen to the Edge of Sanity EP from 94? They do a cover of The Police?
I have, but it's been years. I gotta get on, kind of getting up to speed. I just got the reissue of Purgatory Afterglow. Is it Unorthodox? No.
That's the second.
Oh, Nothing But Death Remains. Don't know why they're not doing them in order, but they're doing Nothing and Death. The first one came out was Purgatory Afterglow. The next one is Nothing. Which is the first one. Not sure what they're doing. I don't know if they're bouncing around, but all great albums. Are you talking about Until Eternity Ends?
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
Great
yeah,
EP.
I don't know if that's included on stuff. Like I said, I got the Purgatory Afterglow. It was funny. I was listening out on the way down to see Horrendous and Tomb Mold, and I'm like, man, Horrendous definitely listened to a lot of Edge of Sanity. And then I got to the show, and Damien was wearing an Edge of Sanity shirt. So, not Crimson. No, that's not out yet. So there's a couple other ones, and probably gonna jump into September that I'm working on. One would be Massively Huge. We kind of alluded to this guy and talked about him a little bit a couple times tonight. Won't go too deep into it, but I think I've got a pretty good shot at getting him on for a short interview. Not going to be a long one. And the Dan one's only going to be about 45 minutes too. So starting to scale back these epic 3-hour long things. Guys don't have the time for it now that the pandemic's gone, and frankly, it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work to go down that road. And my nerddom, I'm a nerdy motherfucker, but, sometimes by 3 hours, like now, almost 4 hours, I'm pretty wiped out. So, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Peter and Jimmy, hang on 1 second. You guys fucking rule. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Guys. Looking forward to part 2. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Chris Herman tomorrow night. God damn it. Be here. That's an important one for me tomorrow night. Really a big one for me. So, be here, I'll be square. Oh, I know who I reached out to, Peter. I'm crossing my fingers, but I reached out to the Radicant today.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. And he and I have had some interaction before.
Oh,
so if you know who that, if you know, you know. If you don't know, maybe you'll know. Pretty famous death melodic metal band guy, but we'll just let you go look it up, people. So I'm hoping he might want to join us as well, but you never know. So, all right, guys, hang on 1 second. Everybody, peace out.
Bye.